All right, welcome everybody. It's Friday night. Check this out. Check this out. Check this out. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show. Okay, so my microphone was cutting out. It has been cutting out on and off, on and off. Some of you know that because I've talked to you not on here for the long one. So now I'm just using the computer itself, but I'm in the dining room and I did a test recording, and you guys can't hear the background television as much, except for if I'm quiet or raw is quiet or the recording is quiet. So it won't be so bad because I'm a lot further away than I was before when I was sitting in the living room. So I'm in the dining room now. So we'll just be playing it on here, and it's low enough. I don't think it seems to be bothering my mother. It's during the day. And when I was on the phone yesterday, like almost the entire day, talking to people, it didn't seem to bother her. She just kept watching TV and ignored me, used to hearing me talk. I'm her son, right? So you can hear me good. And I checked with Raw playing that, but I'll play it again. I can always turn it up if you guys need it. I turned it up, and it seemed like it was just as loud as my voice. But then again, let me know when I start playing it, okay? So we are on session 13 or 14 now? 14, I think. I was in a hurry talking to people today, of course, and then in a hurry to get everything going. So welcome. I see Pamela's here. I think Pamela's here live for the first time. I don't remember if she was here before. Denise is, of course, in the audience. Reese from Australia. Welcome, brother from down under. Casey is also here. And who else? I saw someone else. Let me go back in the chat here. Brianna, welcome. If you guys don't say hi, I don't know that you're in the chat. So if you're there and you're not saying anything, that's okay. You don't have to. Right. Okay. So today's Friday, so we're going to be talking about the law of one, but not just that. I wanted to explain that, especially because Pamela's, pardon me, here for the first time. She's listened to some of the shows, but not exactly sure what's going on. She said, "How do I start? Am I starting out, from the beginning?" And that's, this is the first time you're live. Pamela says on the screen there. If you guys are watching the MP4 broadcast, you're in the chat if you're live. If you're not, then you're listening on the MP3 or listening to the MP4, recording. The way I do things is there is no real beginning. So I should have probably said that at some point. If somebody pops in on the third show, and like now we're on show number 27, and they think, oh no, I have to go back and listen to everything. It would be good if you did, because there's a lot of information that you're going to get. You're going to hear me saying that you may or may not get in the episode that we're in. However, there is no beginning, because I tell people there is no beginning, because there is no beginning, because the beginning says that there is something that you don't know, and that there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. There is, but that beginning, middle, and end is millennial, is eons. It's going to take your soul to learn, not a lifetime that's here. And even on this planet, it takes about 7 to 10, and sometimes 11 or 12 lifetimes for a person just to ascend through the third dimension to go to the next, or the third density to go to the fourth density. So there is no beginning, because there is no middle, and there is no end, because it all happens at the same time, but it only appears to us in this illusion that time has a past, a present, and a future, and it's because we're moving. Our vibration is moving closer to the speed of light than any other vibration in the universe. I don't know why. I could surmise that, but I don't know why the creator decided that. Maybe because we're needing to pack things in, or because it's the only way to separate in the illusion, past, present, and future, because it is. The faster you're moving, the closer you are to the speed of light, the more it stretches time. So that's the only thing that I can figure that's happening. Other than, and this is going to throw some of you, right, maybe freak you guys out, but other than if I am in my own head, okay, which there is reason to believe that everything that we think is reality is just a daydream of the creator. So we are literally only existing inside of our own head. So because of that, the only way for the creator of the universe to do what this exercise is telling us is that we are to have every organic experience possible while interacting with one another and changing all possible outcomes, so that there's an infinite amount of possibilities for possible outcomes. And if I were creating that, I would want to speed that process up as fast as I possibly could, and think like, faster than any computer that we can imagine. And we can imagine things going pretty fast. So I would do that, because if you didn't and you slowed everything down to real time, it would take the creator of the entire universe millennial after millennial after millennial. And when you consider that there's an infinite amount of possibilities, that's going to go on for eternity, for infinity. So therefore, you would want to speed that up as fast as you can from your perspective, so that you would be constantly learning at a faster rate than you're already going. But then again, if you're already going that rate, this is where it gets into the crazy and almost macabre. That creates a paradox as well. So I don't want to get into the physics of that. I remember that I was a physics major in college. I don't want to get into the physics of all of that. I always hearken that to in the television movie comedy, UHF with Weird Al Yankovic and the guy who played Kramer on Jerry Seinfeld's show. Kramer was a janitor, but he was not as dumb as everybody thought he was as a janitor. And he busted in the door one day, and he was thinking, and he said, if you're traveling at almost the speed of light, and if I were to go, and yell, would my brain explode? Right. So that's kind of funny if you think about that he was thinking, well, what if I was stressed myself mentally, and then physically screamed as fast as I could over and over while I was traveling close to the speed of light? Would I blow up? I thought that was brilliant. It was comedy, and they wrote it as a joke, but it's actually kind of brilliant if you're a scientist. You look at that and go, that's actually a really valid thought. What happens when you get that close to the speed of light? Because you're going faster than sound now. So if you're going faster than sound, literally what happens if you started screaming? Because you would scream, and now see, I'm getting into being a nerd here. You would scream, but you wouldn't hear it through your ears because you're moving too fast, and you would be past the sound, so you would hear it resonate through your skull. And what would that do? Because the sound waves and the sound molecules are actually slower than the speed you're going. And that was what he meant. But most people just laughed and thought, wow, that's crazy. That guy's probably on drugs. But the truth is that that's actually a valid theory of what would happen. No one knows, because we can only imagine traveling either at the speed of light or near it. In a physical plane, and being able to survive that, first of all. So it was actually really funny and really super nerdy, but 90% of the planet didn't catch the actual nerdiness about it. They all just laughed and went, wow, that guy's like way out there. And he really wasn't. It was brilliant. So I don't know if Weird Al Yankovic came up with that or the writers, but it was brilliant. And if you're a scientist, you go, oh wow, that was good. Right? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start a little bit here with the law of one and then move into that. But I wanted to preface everything with, it would be good if you have time to go back and listen to anything that I've said in the beginning of this. But my curriculum is always the same. For those of you who catch this now brand new, my curriculum is always the same. I am not linear, so I don't have a curriculum written down where I have to start at day one here and I have to bring everybody through. I do that on every single show about every bit of information that I have, and I speak across vibrational patterns. I talk to the third dimension close to lizard brain, and then I pull and draw you further and further up to a point where you will literally at some point go, I just am lost now. He just said something that is completely above my pay grade. Don't feel bad. I do that on purpose. Sometimes I say things that are above my pay grade, and I want to make that clear as well. I was talking yesterday to Casey. Her and I were talking about this. And I wanted to mention it today because we were talking about it, and it's not just us that talk about it. And we've talked about it many times, and she's talked about it on her own. We talked about that while we were talking. When I get going, a lot of times I go back and listen to what I said, or as I'm saying it, I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's freaking brilliant. I didn't even think that, and it's coming out of my mouth. So I wanted you guys to realize that probably the concept, okay, let's start with that. The concept of what I'm trying to get across is mine. However, as I go during the show, Peter GV, if you guys are in the Law of One chat class on Messenger, you know who he is. Or if you're in the Returning to the Old Ways chat on Messenger or Instagram, or if you're in one of our groups for psychic development and spiritual development, then you know who Peter GV is from South Africa. And he will tell you, because he and I have been working together now for, I don't know, over 5 years, probably longer than that. I've been out here in California almost 7 years. And I think I met Peter when I was in Arizona. So we're looking at 7, 8 years, Peter and I, possibly even longer. And Peter Kyle, who is in Ireland, now he and I have known each other for longer than that on this earth. But he and I spiritually have known each other, and we know that we've known each other for far longer than that. He and I came here together with a coalition of people that some of you in the crowd are a part of, but you don't remember that yet. Okay, so I channel as I'm talking. I'm learning as well. I'm teaching and learning. That's why Ra explains it as learn, teach, teach, learn, because he who is a teacher, and this is in the like everything, the Buddha even talks about it, where to be a true teacher, you have to be first a student. And to be a great student, you have to first be a teacher. And that's how it works. So when you're teaching, if you think, I know everything and I'm teaching these people, and without me, they have no clue, you're not teaching, your ego. So if you're teaching and you're using that title, your brain should be saying, I'm a guide, not a teacher. But some people need that title of someone, oh, there are my teacher. And that's okay. I tell a story about my priest when I was younger. I was probably about 10, 15 years ago now, probably about 15 years ago, and maybe longer. I think I was in my 40s. So, and I'm 55 now. And my priest, Father Neil, he and I were escorting new parishioners into the church, and some that were coming to see the church to see if they wanted to go there. And we were showing them, if you're Roman Catholic or Catholic, then you know what the Beatitudes are. They're the stations of Jesus's life. And it goes around every Roman Catholic church. It starts, if you're standing at the font or at the podium looking at the people, out in the crowd, it starts to the right of you and it goes all the way around the church and ends at the font where the baptismal pool is, right next to the pulpit. And that is in all Catholic churches, Roman Catholic churches worldwide. It's set up that way on purpose. And we were showing everyone the stations, and one of the women who was standing there said, Father Neil, I'm so glad that you're here to guide us. And he said, I'm only here because you need me to be. And all the faces and their jaws all dropped and their eyes bulged out of their head. And he looked at me and winked, and I smiled because I had known we had already had this conversation. And I smiled, and he looked and he says, here's how it works. When you are true to yourself and you pray for forgiveness or you pray to get guidance from the Lord hears you wherever you are. Jesus taught us that on the Sermon on the Mount and other places. And so did Muhammad out in the desert and Moses. God hears you. However, some people need to have another human being be their guide for them, and because they're not really fully involved in spirituality to the point of being awake enough to trust their guides and the universe itself. So they need a human being to say, when they say, Father, forgive me for I have sinned, and then confess the sin. And if you truly mean that, you don't need the Father. However, you need the real Father that is above. And he says, I don't do anything. The only thing I do is listen to you and then tell you what you should already know, that you are forgiven by the Lord. And then your penance, maybe a couple of Hail Marys and Our Fathers. And that's just to make sure that you are serious about what you do. And then you pray. And then you leave and you go out and you sit down and you pray and you do your beads and then you go home. He says, truth is, you were forgiven the moment that you admitted it to yourself, but you don't need me. And that is the role that I take here with all of you. Okay. I'm not here because I think I own something that you don't have, because that is not true. I only have that which I remember, and you only have that which you remember. So as we go forward, remember that and expand your consciousness to there will be a day where I hope, if I do my job, Peter, welcome. I was just talking about Peter, Kyle. Your ears must have been burning, brother. I was just talking about how long we've known each other on this planet and off this planet. And so you have to realize that my hope is that as you're going through this process, there'll be a day when you no longer need me and only choose to talk to me because you want to. And you are then going on and helping other people because that's what you're going to do, because the process is when you wake up, this is why it becomes apparent to you, because it becomes a parent to you. And then when you wake up, and I don't mean woke, that I'm woke, that's all that fake ego crap. They're even using the word woke. When your mind, see, look at, right? When your mind, Peter says, because you tagged Katie, Peter says, great minds think alike. Unless he was talking about something I said, but he might have been talking about what you said, Casey, but either way it works. But you have to realize that when you wake up as an adult, when you actually are awake, you will then realize you have an obligation to help the children. So you will end up helping. That's why in the last harvest, there was only 34 or 38 people that were, I think it was 34, but don't quote me on the number now. I'm confusing myself, that were eligible to actually ascend, and all but one chose to return because they realized that this place still needs some help. So they returned and came back as wanderers and came back in and were born once again into a body here and mind wiped in hopes that they would remember and wake up and remember who it was that they were and that they are here to help. And that's what the majority of the people that are here now are that. If you look at when this was taking place, the Law of One, between 1981 and 1984, and we're right at 1981 still, I think. I'll look when we go to play this next episode, although I don't have the visuals, but so I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember if I copied that. I usually try to, but I don't remember if I did this time. When I copy and paste so that it tells you the date. I don't remember if I grab the date or not. We'll find out when I press play. And I'll try to remember to do that next time. What was my point now? Now I sidetracked myself. I apologize for that. So don't feel bad if you don't understand what's happening. You will in time. Don't feel bad if you at some point say, okay, I don't need Leo anymore. Literally, Ray, the oracle, came in when I was doing the Law of One the first time back in 2019. The first time through the 106 sessions like we are now. She came in and said, this is all basic, isn't it? And I said, well, yeah, for you, because you're awake and you know all this. So for you, it's basic, but for other people, it's brand new and holy crap, right? But then she realized that it was vibrational, and she was only looking at the lowest vibration of what Ra was saying. And then she realized it's not actually basic. I was just tuning into the basic part of what you were saying. And that's when she realized, because if you stay long enough, you'll see me, and I talk in parables. I do that all the time, and you'll see me give you examples, and each one is going to be a different way humans learn, because I know that there are 7 different ways that humans learn. So I use the same parable method that Jesus used, that Muhammad used, that Moses used, and most of the Bibles, most of your Talmuds on the planet. And I want to get into that too as we go, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself. We'll wait until Raw gets there, and then I'll talk about it. And if Raw doesn't, I'll sidetrack to there. Okay. So Peter says the whole world, the weekend ones think the same. He says great minds and the awakening, or the awakened ones. Right. And he said Mr. Love concept. So he's speaking to his phone with his Irish accent, and his phone is translating not everything that he said 100%, but I'm good at translating what Peter's phone tried to translate, because I know how Peter thinks and how he speaks. Right. So the whole world. And then on, with what was just going on, we just had Valentine's Day. I'm not going to get involved in that, but we talked about what Valentine's Day. Or I did with my sister, and it might have with Casey. I'm not sure, because I've talked so much about so many things with so many people in this last week. Valentine's Day was stolen from a different ritual that happened in the pagan community, and they changed the name of it and made it a money-making scheme, but it's actually a religious holiday that is from the southern, the Celts. And let me explain that too, because some people assume that everything that I talk about is all about Vikings, and it is, but there's subtle differences. And I think I talked about this with Casey. In fact, I did. There's subtle differences that people don't realize, that the spirituality of everyone in the world is basically the same. Okay. And because of my DNA is half Celt, half Viking, even though the Celts are Southern Vikings, the reason that we as Southern Vikings call ourselves Celts, first of all, is because the Greeks called us Keltoi, and that meant those people who live up there that are not Greek. And that's why it stuck. We never told people the true name of the race. The Vikings did not either. They never called themselves the Vikings. Viking is what they did when they raided and pillaged. It was called going a Viking. So the people ended up catching onto that word, and they called them Vikings. They don't know what they were called. They never taught anyone their language, and they never taught them their writing, and they never told them what their names were as a race. So you have but they have separated in Viking and Celt, and Viking is a more aggressive, masculine, warlike energy that the people in the north, not all, but the majority of the people in the north kind of go under that. They call that the Bohemian religion. There's a reason I'm telling you this, okay? Bear with me. And then the Celts are more earth-based, native, very much like Native Americans in America. The Scottish were the same way. Very much like, and so wherever it is that you're from on the planet, whatever race you are, you will have, because you will have either the masculine or the feminine or some blending of those two in the spiritual practice that your people practice. And as a theologian, I have read every script and every Bible that I could get my hands on. And if there's one that I haven't read and I find it, I read it. I have made comparisons. That's what a theologian does. We compare all religious, philosophical, spiritual, scientific, and war, including political ideology from a people from all of times on the planet. And those of us who have read enough realize that they're all the same. You can look at this very long, thousands of pages long book by what is his name? Joseph Campbell, called The Hero with a Thousand Faces, where he realized that that all this mythology about these hero characters is all exactly the same. And that hero character that he was talking about is the savior character. And there is many examples of that on the planet, 12 of which were around the world at different times in different countries. And the 12th version was named Jesus the Christ. Okay, Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus Christ, the Savior. That was the last one that was on the earth that did exactly all of those things. And all of them, I have shown 7 that I have literally proved that walked on water, turned water to wine, brought back the dead, raised the dead, cured the blind, cured the sick, did all the things that Jesus did, and then were killed, if not including crucified for what they did 12 times in the history of what we can remember on the last, most people think it's this one last cycle, but it's not, because the Marduk is the cycle before that. And the Egyptian god that Thoth talks about, and Anu, which is Akkadian, that's older than Marduk in the Mesopotamians. So Anu was from the time before the War of the Gods, which is in the Colburn Bible in Scotland, where they tell about before this, from the deluge until now. That's this generation that we are in, which is the 7th cycle, the 7th generation on this earth in this last octave. And the one prior to the deluge, there was a whole civilization that lived and the Mayans and Incans knew about it, with that whole 3,600 year cycle of the long count. Or maybe that was the short count and the long count was 6,000. Either way, the cycles are 6,000 to 12,000 years. And in between, and there was the 75,000 years ago, there was the meteor that struck, and then beyond that was a volcano that erupted, And then there was the War of the Gods, or the War of the Gods was in between those. The War of the Gods was at least 35,000 years ago, if not more. I'm thinking 45,000 years ago, and that was when Atlantis sank. So the war happened prior to that. That was when Moldek blew up, and now we have the Kuiper Belt left from the destruction of Moldek. And so the philosophies are lost in most of that. However, there are still a few scrolls that are a part of the Dead Sea Scrolls that go back to there in the first 7 books of the Colburn Bible, which is a Scottish Bible, and they're right after that of the last 6 books, or the other way around. It's either the first 6 or the first 7, and the last 6 or 7. So the first 6 or 7 were scrolls that came out of Egypt with Moses during the Exodus of Egypt for the Jews, and then they went to Jerusalem, and the Scottish monks got a hold of the scrolls and copied them and took them back to Scotland and added them to the Colburn Bible. And their creation story, because it was so similar, the Viking creation story predates all of the Judeo-Christian stories. They just don't want you to know that. They now know that genetically the Vikings were around and conquered the known world before the Romans, before the Greeks, before the Egyptians, by testing people all over the world to find out that they came out of Norway. And that was somewhere around 65,000 years ago. So that would suggest that their creation story is older. And then the Greeks, people don't realize the Greeks were around as long as they were, because Arcadia, which was east and south of Mesopotamia, where the Marduk scrolls comes from, they were old. They were as old, if not older, than the Mesopotamians, and they were Greeks. Arcadia were Greeks. So people don't realize that until you go to translate it, and then you read the Arcadian language, and they realize that was Old Greek. Okay. But the Mesopotamian language is not what they thought, because it was written in cuneiform. So it was they now know that it was a part Norwegian and part Greek language. So, and then eventually the Greeks took over, and the Mesopotamian country fell out of favor, and eventually was completely absorbed by another country. And that happens all the time. I mean, look at America, look at the UK, and look at Russia and how things change in 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Okay. So why is this important? All of this is important because you need to realize that whatever your physical body is, whatever the race is in your physical body and your DNA, you're going to find that that culture that you've been brought up in has the exact same dynamic and the exact same background and creation story that of everyone else. The only things that change are the names of the deities playing out the characters that are all exactly the same. There's always a creation, and there's always either, and this is why I pointed out how the Viking religion is more masculine and the Celtic religion is more feminine. It's always either a male-dominated deity or a female-dominated deity, or a blending of the two. The Vikings and the Celts both had a blending of the two, but the Vikings follow mostly Thor and Odin and all the men, whereas the Celts follow Freyr and most of the women. They were more afraid of that when the Romans tried to conquer the Woads. In England and in Ireland, they said they're more afraid of the goddess than they are the Roman legions. So you're going to find that there's going to be 3 aspects that are, and this is why I always use the Kundalini because most people know that, because if you look at the Viking and the Celts, they have that weaving pattern that they have, that is 2 strains that are wrapped around each other, and that is the same as the Kundalini snakes wrapping around each other going up your spine, and it represents the exact same thing, and that is masculine and warlike deities and feminine and more loving, caring, nurturing deities, and then balancing those 2. The Celts did that better than the Vikings did, but the Vikings also did do that, and they don't talk about that in movies and books because it doesn't make as much money. Why do they not talk about it? And this is where I'm going with this, and you're going to hear this when I do start Raw. So eventually, for some of you who are like, dude, are you ever going to get to playing Raw? You will understand where I'm going right now when we do start playing Raw, okay? Some of these, the reason that they only focus on the men is obvious. It is exactly what you think it is. You women, especially, it is exactly what you think it is. It is to control women and to make them a diminished in character and ownership by men, and second class to men, and has been since the people with egos have been in control. And they've tried to shut you women up. And the reason for that is men are easier to control when women aren't telling them what to do, because they're dogs, and they're dogs of war because they're men, and you can diminish them to lizard brain really quickly and then go point and go get them. And men will go, yeah, get them. And they'll go and start hacking and killing. So they're easier to control. Women who have to be nurturing, and if you're in a Celtic society or a Native American society, you understand that the women, and in your societies too, I'm sure if no matter where you are on the planet, you'll know of this. The women do all the teaching of the children. They do all of the nurturing. They do all of the managing of the home because the man's never there. The men are off fighting in wars. The women has to teach the boys how to fight, how to survive, how to cook, how to clean, how to plant crops, all of those things. Women are more nurturing. And what happens is, because, and this is true with science, women can multitask on more than 14 things. 14 thoughts at one time. Men can only do 9 to 11 if they're lucky. If they're lucky, men can only balance 9 to 11 different projects at once, and women can easily do 14. Okay. And because of that, women start becoming outspoken, and men had to shut them up to keep them under control. Why? Because the concerted effort by the Orion Crusaders, not to be mistaken, and some people don't know that there is another coalition here from Orion, and that's why everyone says to me, Orion Rising, how is that possible? Well, if you're actually listening to Ra, you will know that Ra is from Orion. They are from Orion, and they are here. There is a group of people, a coalition that is here with the coalition of planets on Venus, or at Venus. I can't say on because it's in a different phase of existence than ours, because it's actually in the fifth, not in the third or the fourth dimension. We can't see the fourth dimension or the fifth dimension, and they're in the fifth and the eighth. Okay. But the eighth doesn't talk to us because we're at the seventh or below. That's the difference in octaves for a grander scheme of things. So there's a coalition that has come here that is the Orion Coalition of Light. Okay. And those are that Peter and I are a part of, and we followed chasing the Orion Confederation. They don't call themselves that now here on Earth. Here on Earth, they call themselves different things. And when they got here, they didn't call themselves the Orion Confederation. But thousands of years ago, when we chased them out of Orion's belt, they were called the Orion Crusaders group. And so we still call them that because that's who they are, even if they want to change their name and tell everybody else there's something different. They're not. They're still that same group. So we're chasing them out of here. Okay. So those people, the way that they brainwash you is, for men, is to keep them in their lizard brain, and for women to try and keep them there and then shut them up, because women have the feminine part of the Kundalini energy, and they don't want that energy being unleashed on the planet because they need it to stay warlike so they can stay in control. This is what Ra is warning about. Okay. So so women have been treated for thousands of years as second-class citizens and property, and that's changed over time, and people fight back against it. The Roman Catholic Church today, now know that if you don't know who I am, I have been knighted by the Roman Catholic Church. I have a Sir title. Okay, so me taking shots at the Roman Catholic Church, and I'm a Christian minister. I have 2 minister titles within the Christian faith. One in the Catholic Church because I have been knighted by the Holy Roman Catholic See. I was knighted on April 5th, 2004, and I always say that. And I think it's the day that Saint John Paul, Pope John Paul II died. I was knighted about half an hour after they announced, maybe an hour after they announced that he had died. We were there in our garb, dressed up in our tuxedos, waiting to get knighted. And then everybody's Blackberries, we didn't have smartphones back then. Everybody's Blackberries and cell phones went crazy and haywire, and they came out with a podium and a microphone and told us that the Pope had passed. And then we were all knighted. So those of us lucky enough to be knighted on that day are now, and the reason for us to be happy about that was Pope John Paul was the one who brought the Knights of Columbus back as a holy order of the church officially. So we're currently the only holy order in the church. All the other knights were disbanded thousands of years ago because of that whole thing with the Templar Knights. And I don't want to get involved in that. But my point of all this is that me talking about the church in a way that I'm about to talk is not me, some guy taking shots at the church. I was a minister in the church. I have a minister title from the Universal Life Church in Phoenix, Arizona. I am a Christian minister. I also have titles. I'm a Merlin. That title took me longer than anything else. That title took me almost 18 years of my life. It was about 16 years, actually, of my life to get. Okay. I literally was in training every day. If you ever read the Sword and the Stone, the book about Arthur's training, started when he was a boy. That's real. Or if you've read the 18 Lessons of Merlin or the 21 Lessons of Merlin, that's real. I went through that. And more so. The books don't tell everything. And I have other titles. So I'm not some atheist trying to talk smack about the churches. The churches were corrupted by the evil people, the people that are in service to self, and trying to keep anyone from learning what I'm teaching, what Ra is teaching, and what everybody else on the planet was talking about, what the Buddha talked about, with the Lao Chi when he talked about the Tao Te Chi when they wrote that from his works. David, Elijah, Moses. Jesus, many people, including Mohammed, including Mahatma Gandhi, Stephen Biko, Martin Luther King Jr., Martin Luther, who left the Roman Catholic Church and they started Lutheranism. These people and more. There's, everybody, the band In Living Color from the 90s wrote a song about that. And their lyrics were, when a leader speaks, that leader dies. And they were showing that, and I did a video about that very thing as well, showing you all the leaders throughout history that fought, including Joan of Arc and Robin Hood, that fought to free the people, and that most of them were killed for what they did. And I show that and have words that you can read on the screen with music. That's on my YouTube channel. Ironically, I posted it on that channel, and not the Orion Rising channel, which had over 450 or 460 videos that got deplatformed by Google. Thank you very much, because I downsized their access to my life, and they didn't like it, so they deleted me, and I had to create a new account just to have an account on any Google account and on YouTube. Ironically, I already had one with a different email address, and they didn't delete that one, but just that one. How dare you? And it was a warning. They did the same thing with when I was 5, 6, 7 years ago now, with Ancient Aliens Worldwide, where they were deleting my account off of Ancient Aliens Worldwide and all of my stuff. And I had to go to the coalition and actually say, I need that. You need to do something about that. And to this day, there is no official response. Facebook says, we don't know what happened. We have no idea, sir. They don't acknowledge that I was deleted for 3 days. I was scheduled for deletion and was taken down for 3 days. And luckily I had backup accounts there. And then all of a sudden I was turned back on, and they never gave me any explanation. I don't know, sir. We don't have anything was happening. Are you sure that you had the right login? That was what I got from that. Okay. So they have been keeping you down on purpose. This is the knowledge that was corrupted from the Garden of Eden, when corrupted to what you now read in the Bible about that story of eating the fruit, and then telling Adam, quick, come here, you need to eat this too. And the fact that they learned knowledge. And why was that so bad? Why, if the creator of the universe created us, why is it that I'm going to create you, but you don't get to know? You don't get to know certain things. I don't want you knowing. Well, that's a form of slavery. So if that is the universe, or multiverse that we're living in, we're literally enslaving our own self and keeping us. I get that we're doing that because we need to be veiled here. Okay. But everyone says that they're taught, well, they learned the knowledge of good and evil, and that's our sin. That was already going on prior to that. Okay. And the reason for that is it doesn't make sense. And then we'll go on with Ra, and you'll see where all of this is going. It doesn't make any sense because then it says that Adam and Eve went out to the world and then they were fruitful and multiplied. And then they tell stories of their children marrying people that weren't related to them. Well, hold on a tick. Back up, please. Rewind. What happened to Adam and Eve were the first two, and there was no one else on the planet but them. And now you're telling me in the Bible that it wasn't incest that spawned the whole human race, that there were people alive outside of the Garden of Eden that were not Adam and Eve. Hold on, what the fuck are you saying? Because, pardon my American, because you just told me that this is where it goes really awry and doesn't make any sense. They were the first two, Adam, but then there's the story of what's her name? I can't think of her name. Lilith. Wait, hold on. Now I'm confused, people. Who's Lilith? Lilith was created before Eve, but she wasn't created out of Adam's rib. She was created out of mud too. That's very Roman-esque, by the way, that the humans were created out of mud. That comes from Zeus and those storylines. And that's the only place where that comes from is the Greco-Roman gods created the humans out of mud. And then you have the only other people saying that are the Hebrews, right? So for those of us learning this, well, they were created out of dirt. Well, in some of the other pantheons, they say that too. However, it doesn't matter as much, but it was just Adam and Eve. So Adam and Lilith were created, but Lilith wouldn't shut up, and Lilith wasn't controllable, and she wouldn't listen to Adam. So Adam complained to God. This is the story. And then God said, all right, that's fine. You, bitch, get out. I'll create another one. This time we'll take a rib from you. So she's part of you. So she'll be bound to you. So then, of course, the same thing happens and she eats the fruit. But, it's the devil disguised as a serpent who comes in. And what was his penance for pissing off God and having Eve chew the fruit? Oh, he has to slither on his belly for all of eternity. Well, he's a snake. That's what they do. So what exactly is his penance then? What did he get? What was his penalty? Oh, well, you have to remain a snake for the rest of eternity. I am a snake, bro. I came slithering into the garden. So that doesn't really tell me that there was equal justice there. And then Adam and Eve, who God said, you cannot do this. It'll be against my will as God. They didn't listen to God, then lied to him. And then what did God do? Okay, get out. That's it. So God is a pushover in that storyline. And God got mad because they actually learned knowledge. What was the knowledge? Oh, they learned that there was good and evil. Oh, okay. So good and evil didn't exist until she chewed on that tree. Why then would you make a tree that gives knowledge to humans when you make humans and then tell them about the tree and tell them not to eat from that fruit? And then they eat from that fruit because they are children and they have no knowledge. As a God who knows everything, I should have fucking known that. And I had to have fucking known that if I am, in fact, all-seeing, all-knowing, all-loving, the creator of the universe. So if that's the case, then why am I pretending that I'm mad and kicking them out and then not telling the world about Lilith? Where did she go? And then when Adam and Eve have children, there's other kids around for them to marry, and everything starts going. So it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, because God looks like, first of all, a pushover. Doesn't matter what God says. Thou shalt not. Fuck off, bro. You didn't do anything about Adam and Eve. You're not going to do anything about me doing it. Okay. And what's the worst they're going to do? You don't get to live in the garden anymore. Okay. I don't live in the garden now, bro. That's the same thing. You're a snake. You get to stay a snake. Oh, I'm a snake already, dude. Right? So there's something there that was taken away from that story, and the story was designed for children to scare them. Here comes the boogeyman. Here comes Baba Yaga. Okay? And don't look under the bed. Baba Yaga will get you. The boogeyman will get you. The bogeyman's going to get you. It's written for children, and it doesn't make any sense. You could tell me, hickory dickory dock, the mouse ran up, the clock struck 2, and the scared the mouse, and he ran back down the clock. That makes as much sense as the Adam and Eve story. There is no difference in my mind in the dynamic between those two different stories. They're both completely obviously made up if you're an adult. And if they where's the truth in there? You need to look for it and find it. Okay. And so my point of all of that is that everything has been corrupted to keep everybody stupid, to shut women up, to keep you from teaching men to be more accepting of the Kundalini energy, or the idea of that, or the dual aspect, the feminine, non-warlike energy that is this millennial we're moving into of Baktun 13, according to the Incans and Mayans, the age of Aquarius, to those of you who have a little bit more of an Eastern philosophical tendency. You understand that. Ragnarok, for those of you that are Bohemians, the end of days, all of that. And everyone goes, oh, no, we're living in the end times. No, well, we are and we're not. The end times already happened, people. That already happened a long time ago. The devil will be unleashed on the planet for a time. That time has actually ended now. Okay, so so all of that everybody is thinking is not true. In fact, Revelations in the Bible, we've talked about this. The revelations of Jesus is in fact telling you, and so is the Exodus, is in fact telling you how to be able to get around the algorithms and to get around the knowledge of people who are nefarious, the people who are in service to self and evil. The knowledge that they're telling you, the letters to the churches, go back and read them and get out a chart that has all the chakras, the color of the chakras in order from red to purple, and have the one that tells you what each chakra represents as you move through those, and then read the letters to the churches, and you will realize that the letters to the churches and the Exodus in the Bible are both telling you how to align your chakras, because they're telling you how to ascend and to return to heaven. And those of us who are theologians realize this. There's other stories that are doing the exact same thing. So these stories on their base are low vibrational, that are written down in all the Talmuds. At the same time, that low vibration has a vibration that is every level in between that, all the way through to an ascension. And that is in the Bible code, that is in Moby Dick, that is in the Law of One, that is in everything you could ever possibly imagine that we create. And it's there for you. That is the spiral that you see drawn on the caves everywhere on this planet. And if you look at my reels, you'll see that I gave you the 40,000-year-old cave drawings. And if you stop the thing and look at the picture and look at the cave drawings, you'll see that they've realized that it came out of Europe, somewhere around northern Europe, close to where is modern day Norway, but more importantly, somewhere right around Geatland, where Beowulf was from, which is today modern day Denmark and the area around there, west coast of Spain, where the type O negative or type O blood type has come from, with the Celtic people who cannot be, or the white race that cannot be traced back more than 10,000 years on this planet. Came from that exact spot, by the way. And the cave drawings are everywhere on the planet, but not all of them. The highest concentration is in northwestern or west-southwest, almost dead center, west coast of Europe, and all the rest of the planet has all of the other, in some countries, like the United States, don't have the 20, but they have 10 of them. Australia has 8 of them. Africa has 9 of them. Everywhere on the planet. And so there was a people that were everywhere on this planet who were using the exact same writing system and the exact same spiritual aspect, putting down information in caves. And of those people, the spiral was one of those that is at least 40,000 years old and thought to be even older on this planet, including the palm that you see, the hand, the painting, which is they put their hand on there and they actually have the dye in their mouth. The Aborigines of Australia still do it to this day. You put your hand on the wall and you have the dye in your mouth and you spit it, you spray it over your hand. And when you remove your hand, there's an outline. Jamie, welcome. There's an outline of your hand, of your palm. Whether it's right or left is important because it makes a different message. And then that is worldwide from 40,000 years ago, amongst other things, and including the spiral. That is that they understood. I hate to use that term. They understood, because we don't stand under anyone. That's part of the the information that they use on you. This is what Ra was talking about, and we'll get into that. I am going to start Ra. I know I'm going on for a long time, but you'll see why. Okay, so we'll get going with Ra here in a second. So I'm trying to show you that this information is just because of everyone thinks. I'm trying to get you out of the mindset. Let me explain why I'm doing all this. Your mindset is so locked into 3D, into technology, that they have you convinced that without this technology, the human race could not exist. Okay, and that we are the smartest people on the planet because we designed and created computers. Okay. And that is absolutely poppycock. And that nobody was communicating with anyone and nobody went anywhere. They were just a bunch of cavemen and they were stupid. That's part of the narrative to keep you in that low vibration. Because if you then start to realize in history, and so the reason why they've tried to erase history and don't want you to know history, by the way, because to know true history is to know yourself. And to know history of the planet and what happened here and what's going on here and the cycles that have gone on to where the ebb and flow has happened, where they've taken charge and then been overthrown and taken charge and been overthrown, is including up to now, because it's happening again now, just like it happened 10,000 years ago, 40,000 years ago, 75,000 years ago, 150,000 years ago, and in between. But you don't know that if you have no access to knowledge. And that's why they've tried. That's why the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. That's why the Colburn Bible was found. It's why all of these things were found. And I talk about this all the time because they were hidden, because they were trying to be destroyed. Julius Caesar burned every bit of knowledge that was in the Library of Alexandria. Why? The Roman Catholic Church burned everything during the 1500s, during the Renaissance, and kept stuff for themselves only in their archives to this day. Why did they do that? What they were trying to control the narrative and the information that you had access to. So they controlled the churches, all of them. They got rid of any texts that didn't fit the narrative they were painting, and they only told you what they wanted you to know. And that is what we're learning now on this planet. Okay. But for millennial, for probably 75,000 years or more, they've been controlling. So the devil was unleashed on the planet long ago. Ragnarok already happened. The Kali Yuga already happened. The end of times already happened. That's all done already. The worst time possible for this planet is in the past. But they want you to think that it's winding down now and all of civilization is going to come undone and you're all going to starve to death and die or be killed. They want you believing and being in fear, because people in fear are easier to control. So they get inside the narrative of the people that are in this ancient alien culture. I know I created Ancient Aliens Worldwide, the group on Facebook back in 2012, and there's almost 300,000 members. It's the largest group on Facebook for alien hunting and the largest group anywhere on the planet for alien hunting, except for 2 websites, one of which is MUFON Global on the planet. But their website isn't a platform where everyone can post. Okay, so the biggest open platform where you can go and read people who are posting real-time information and real-time investigations from around the world is on Facebook, and it's called Ancient Aliens Worldwide, and I'm the owner and creator of that in 2012 when I created it. Okay, and that's why I have it there, and that's why it is the way it is. There are other groups that are out there that are almost as large. I'm not saying that we're the best group on the face of the earth, but we do really good. And most people who come there, you don't find commercials, you don't find porn, you don't find fights. When people fight, we get them out of there quickly. And if they continue to do that, we kick them out of the group. You can have your children go in there and read information if you're so inclined to let your children know that aliens exist and that there is another narrative on the planet other than the one that you think is in there. But it's not being taught this critical race theory on there, right? And I don't like people who think the earth is flat. Not that I don't like them personally, but they're missing a few things, and they're being narrow-minded and thinking the earth is flat and it's all fake and we never went to the moon and all that was filmed, because I saw one show where a light fixture fell when they were trying to, but I know that when those were tests. That film was not ever aired as if we were on the moon. That was them trying to recreate, to test the suits and everything that was going on, and a light fixture fell, but somebody leaked that and said that was a part of the moon landing, and it wasn't, and that wasn't true. Okay. I know that for a fact. So that's why I'm telling you all of this and spending as much time on this, to get you to expand your consciousness, to the realization that you have to unlearn everything that you've learned. That's why that was told back in the 90s when they did the movie Willow. You have to unlearn everything that you have learned, was how they showed it on the commercials on television, because they were breaking down the barriers of magic and beliefs, and the belief system that ESP or magic or psychic abilities and people, small groups of people, could stand against large groups, just like they did later with 300, showing the story of 300 of Leonidas and what they did 3,000 years ago at the Battle of Thermopylae. And that spawned a lot of people with Tolkien and all these guys that wrote these books and narratives in the 40s in England, over in Europe and England and America. And all those have become movies now, science fiction movies and the like. And that has expanded the consciousness of people to the point where those movies are more popular than any other movies that are released, and they become epics, and they have 3, 4, 5 movies out of them because the books were that long. There's a reason for that. The Matrix and things like that respond from that forward thinking. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finally, as we're an hour in, I'm going to start with Raw. So those of you who left and got mad because you're like, oh my God, he's not even addressing Raw. If you've been here once, you understand that what I do is I channel this information. I do not ramble. It seems like I do, but even the information that I've just given you for the last hour, I just finished the 7th parable telling you the exact same story. Some of you would sit there and go, you just said this before, but you're saying it differently. Those of you who do that, please be patient. If you hear me telling a story and you go, that's the same story, dude, just told a different way, and now you're doing it again, there's a reason for that, because there are 7 ways that humans learn, and there are 13 different vibrational patterns within this octave, and I'm aware of that. And so I talk to the lowest vibration and pull you up as I go, until usually the last one I talk about, 2 or 3 of you go, what did he just say? I don't know, man. He lost me on that one. I don't know. That didn't even sound like it had anything to do with what he said before. He's rambling now. See, and that's usually when people think I'm rambling, it's because they don't understand. There's that word again. They don't understand or comprehend the vibrational pattern that I'm saying. And it's not because they're at a lower vibration. It's because that's not how they learn. Know that I am aware of that. I went to school to be a retail manager. And one of the things they teach you there is that people learn 7 different ways, and you need to learn those 7 ways so that when you're trying to teach someone something, you have that ability to look at that person and say they are going to learn one of these ways, and sometimes overlapping, and they know through 2 or 3 of them. And sometimes somebody will get any of them. But there's going to be that one person that's only going to get one way. And you have to find out what that way is. If you are a good manager, a good guide, a good teacher, you are the one who is paying attention to your flock, to the people you're trying to teach, and you're making sure you don't leave anyone behind by teaching them the proper way and the way that they will learn. And that is what I do. So sometimes people think I ramble, when in fact, all I'm doing is trying to make sure that every single person who listens to this broadcast, wherever they are in this planet, wherever they are at their developmental stage of their spirituality or the lack thereof, there's going to be something for you to actually resonate with in my speech. Okay. So Jamie, welcome. I did say that. Deborah, welcome. Deborah Anderson just popped in. So I apologize if I'm right in the middle of it, but you got here at a good time because I haven't actually started playing Raw yet. So we're going to move on right now. After I've prefaced an hour of Raw, I'm going to go ahead and start this session. So let me click over here. And we are on, I believe, session 14. We are on session 14. So let's go ahead and start. And any questions that you have at any time, please type it into the chat. Oh, and again, I'm sorry, I'm an hour in. Those of you who happen to be on my personal page, if you're on my personal page and you type in the chat and I don't say hello to you or answer your question, it's because I'm broadcasting live on Orion Rising on Facebook and my personal page. And sometimes it lets one go in here, the chat, come into this chat where I can see it, and sometimes the other one. So it switches, and most of the time it gets Orion Rising, but not my personal. But sometimes it does for whatever reason. I haven't figured it out yet. I might not see what you're saying to me. So if I don't answer you, it's not because I'm ignoring you. Then you want to jump to whichever one you're not on and go to the other one, because that's where the chat will be in here for me to see. Because I used to have 2 monitors that I would set up besides the one that I'm using to run, and I would have those open so I could look back and forth. I don't do that anymore. that just created too much of a radiation field. When I took out my Geiger counter, it was dangerous for humans to be sitting that close to 3 computers, that close to myself. So I went, okay, downsizing. This is as much radiation as getting an X-ray. Okay, so thank you, Pamela said. I like the different ways that you explain it because it makes sure we all get it. That's why I do that, Pamela. That's exactly why I talk the way I do. Jesus spoke that way. Muhammad, all of the best orators in history understood, and there's that word again, understood, comprehended, because we don't stand under anyone, understood the concept that people learn different ways, so you have to explain the same thing different ways so everyone gets it. And that's not a reflection of that person is stupid and doesn't have as much education as I do. It literally has to do with where you were born, what culture you were born to, what time of year you were born, and how you were raised, and partly some of what your education is, but where you are, mostly where you are in your spiritual development. Because in this reality, they're trying to keep you, and this is what Ra is warning about, they're trying to keep you as close to the lizard brain as possible, and that is childlike. Okay, that is the IQ test. You can't Google this anymore. You used to be able to Google it. I try to go to DuckDuckGo and say, what is the IQ test on, or what is it based on? Because they'll tell you how the test is run. I don't want to know how the test is run. What is the outcome is based on what? The outcome of the World IQ test is literally this, that no human being on this planet is actually more mature than the age of 18. That the average person with an IQ of between 100 and 115 or 120 is in fact between the age of 11 and 16 years of age mentally. Okay. And if you test as a genius, that just means that you are actually an adult and you think like one. So if you're a genius, I'm a genius on the IQ test. I have an IQ of above 160. That just means that you're actually an adult. It doesn't mean that it does kind of mean that you're smarter than other people because you actually, the world is apparent to you. Well, that became apparent to me when wait a minute, let's go look at that word. What did it become to you? A parent? No, it became apparent. Yeah, apparent. Like your mom or your dad, somebody who's wiser than you. That's that word. That's what that word means. It dawned on me and it became apparent to me. So it became wiser to me and explained to me. And so I understood, there's that word again, I stood under that knowledge. Okay. So that just means that you are in fact an adult. Okay. And so, but they don't want you to know that because they don't want you thinking that you're a child because they want you to be a child. Okay. Let's start with Ra in session 14. If you can't hear this, tell me in the chat and I will turn it up. Okay.
14.0 Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and the light of the infinite creator. We communicate now. 14.1 Questioner, going back over this morning's work, inaudible. You said the second density strives towards the third density, which is the density of self-consciousness or self-awareness. The striving...
All right, I'm going to pause there and I'm going to wait for you guys because I know you're about 30 seconds behind me because of the lag. Somebody please type in there. Denise did. Thank you. Okay. So I knew if I waited about almost 30 seconds, which is what I did, I actually waited 17 seconds and then clicked. And then by the 30-second mark, Denise said you can hear it fine. So Denise can hear it. You guys can probably hear it. I'm going to go ahead and continue.
Takes place through higher second density forms invested by third density beings. Could you explain what you mean by this? Ra, I am Ra. Much as you would put on a vestment, so do your third density beings invest or clothe some second density beings with self-awareness. This is often done through the opportunity of what you call pets. It has also been done by various other means of investiture. These include many so-called religious practice complexes which personify and send love to various natural second density beings in their group form. 14.2 Questioner, when this earth was second density, how did the second density beings on this earth become so invested? Ra, there was not this type of investment as spoken but the simple third density investment, which is the line of spiraling light calling distortion upward from density to density.
Okay, I wanted to let it go to that and stop there. Okay. So we went over this last week. This is why I always say I get ahead of myself because I went over this last week explaining how that we were probably at some point someone's pet or around a societal structure that treated us in a way that helped us to ascend faster. Okay. And we do that to our pets. We give them a name. We talk to them like they're real, like they're humans, and they start to realize that they are. And that's where you hear the philosophers of the world say, I think, therefore I am. They were close, but their concept, the translation didn't work exactly, because now we wouldn't say, because our conceptual reality has given us the ability to realize beyond I think, because the thinking mind is in fact the ego and the id, and those are both not us. Those are part of this illusion and reality, and we are above that. But however, if you go back 3,000 years to when that was said, I think, therefore I am, they were on the right track. So that is, they were saying, I'm conscious and aware that I am something. So therefore I am. And that is what happens. And that is when you go from, and this is what he's explaining, to second density life form by somebody who is either a dog, cat, bird, whatever. And then when you die in that life, you're then born in this one as a person. So, okay, here we go. We're going to continue.
The process takes longer when there is no investment made by incarnate third density beings. 14.3 Questioner. Then what was the second density form? What did it look like that became Earthman in the third density? What did he look like in the second density? Ra. I am Ra. The difference between second and third density bodily forms would in many cases have been more like one to the other. In the case of your planetary sphere, the process was interrupted by those who incarnated here from the planetary sphere you call Mars. They were adjusted by genetic changing and, therefore, there was some difference which was of a very noticeable...
Okay, sorry, I don't know if you guys heard me talking to my mother. My mother got up because she saw me in the dining room and brought her drink in and came to sit down because she was wanting to know why I was in here. Because she was like, oh, look, he's in there. I'll go and sit with him in the dining room. And so I was like, Mom, no, please come back in here and sit down and watch TV. I'm in here talking about God. So she was like, oh, okay. So here, I apologize for that. But here's where you see where he's going further now, and he's explaining that the people from Mars, because I talked about Moldek a second ago, and he'll mention that, but the people of Mars, there was a war. This is the war of the gods that happened one of the times before the deluge. In the Colburn Bible in Scotland, you'll hear about that, and then also the Vedic texts from India talk about that, and the Germans also have the memory of that. A lot of people don't know that. I showed that in one of my videos where they talked about spaceships in the sky fighting one another. There was a war where this solar system was involved with another solar system, and that's where you get the Mars has the swath that was particle beam weapon that was blown up, and that's why we have the Grand Canyon in the United States, because if the Grand Canyon was in fact just a river that was flowing that was natural erosion for a billion years, how come it's the only one on the planet that is anywhere near that deep? There's nowhere else on the planet that has one that's that deep. There's a few in Iceland and things where you look at the fjords up there and you go, this might have been something like that, but that was from the ocean, not just a little trickle of a river. The Colorado River is not that rapid and wide and thick to be able to do that. So even the scientists are like, yeah, it's possible that it did that, but it's just as possible that something else happened, okay? And they believe that the swath on Mars was a particle beam weapon. So at the time there was a war that was going on and Moldek was blown up. Mars was attacked as well, but that didn't kill the people on Mars. The people on Mars died from also trying to blow themselves up with a nuclear weapon, but they used a different kind of weapon. I'm not going to get involved in that right now, but what it did was it froze the people of Mars in a catatonic state. And they sat their spirits, that is, not just their bodies. Their bodies they died, but were obliterated. But their spirits froze and was stuck for 75,000 years before someone came to help them. So could you imagine? We've been stuck on this planet for 150,000 years, close to that. But we're conscious and running around, just stuck here and not actually graduating. They were frozen. Their spirits couldn't move, and they were frozen. And it took 75,000 years for someone or a group of their spirits to be able to reach out to the world and say, hey, help. And somebody showed up and went, well, there is an entire species that is stuck. Some of those people, not all, but a lot of them came here. Okay. And the people from Moldek came here as well. So there's people on this planet that are indigenous to here. Some of you may be, but more than likely, if you found me and you're listening to me, there's a very good possibility, an 85 to 90% chance that you're not from this planet originally. You didn't grow up here. You're not here for the first time. You're not even here for the 10th time. You've been here longer than that. And there's a very good possibility that you came from another planet and came here. And on top of that, there's even a bigger possibility because you're listening to me, or if you would have came in here and left in less than 5 minutes, then maybe not. But even then, sometimes people aren't ready to wake up yet, but they are still a wanderer. But there's a very good possibility that those of you who are listening to me and I resonate with you, the reason that you're drawn to me and the reason that I resonate with you is because I'm speaking a truth that is on a level of vibration that is getting through to your immortal soul, and your immortal soul is saying, listen to what this man has to say, because I'm one of the people that are here to wake you up. Someone woke me up, and I am now doing the same, and I am a beacon for people that are ready to wake up to find. But it's not limited to people that are not from this planet, but it is specifically pointed at people that are not from this planet, but it is for people on this planet, or anyone who is getting close to the vibrational level of being awake and starting to remember who it is that they are and why it is that they're here, and the fact that we are stuck and ready to go, hey, we need to fix this. Okay. And that is what I'm doing. And so this is what Ra's alluding to here, and you'll see that as we continue. Okay.
Variety rather than the gradual raising of the bipedal forms upon your second density level to third density level. This has nothing to do with the so-called placement of the soul. This has only to do with the circumstances of the influx of those from that culture. 14.4 Questioner: I understand from previous material that this occurred 75,000 years ago. Then it was our third density process of evolution began. Can you tell me the history, hitting only the points of development, shall I say, that occurred within this 75,000 years, any particular times or points where the attempts were made to increase the development of this third density? Ra: I am Ra. The first attempt to aid your peoples was at the time 75,000. This attempt 75,000 of your years ago has been previously described by us. The next attempt was approximately 58,000 of your years ago.
Now, the reason that they're saying that more than once is because the computer is reading what is written, and they're giving it in word form and then in number form. You know how you do that? You write out 50,000 years in English, and then you put in brackets the numbers 50,000 years, or 58,000 years in this case. So the computer is saying it twice. It's not a glitch in the computer or the translation or Raw coming through. It's just the way that it was written, because I'm using the direct text that came from the actual recording that in the cassette tape that they were recording that was sitting on Carla's chest while she was channeling. This information is from the LL Research Group, and it is literally from their website, and it is literally the transcripts of the channeling sessions. Okay, so right, yeah. Pamela said, did anyone else get really emotional at the being frozen at 75,000 years for 75,000 years? That was first time I heard that was very emotional for me too. Okay, and that was 6 years ago or 5 years ago now. That's very emotional to think an entire species was frozen catatonically, their spirits, for 75,000 years, and no one noticed in the universe. And then somebody found out, and they said, oh man, we need to help these people. Think about that. And some of them are here on this planet right now. There's not very many that are left from Moldek or Mars. Most of the people that are on this planet, about 25% of the population on this planet currently is indigenous to this planet. They were trees or birds or cats or something that became sentient. And 75% approximately is of that, about 30 to 35% of that is from Mars and Moldek, and the rest are actually wanderers that have come here to help. That's why the population, when Ra was speaking here in this session in 1981, of the planet was 2.7 billion people. Today we're at 7.8, 7.9 billion people on the planet. So we have literally are 3 times larger than we were when Ra was talking about this. Okay. And the reason for that is that the flocks and flocks and flocks and flocks of people have come here to help this planet from all over the universe. That's why I say there's a very good possibility, because if you go back and figure out those numbers, approximately 68% of the people that are on this planet are in fact from a higher vibration. So the majority of the people that are here, humans on this planet, are not from here, have never been here until they came here as a wanderer and were born into a human body. Jesus, in the Bible, you can read this. I don't have the exact place quoted to tell you. Otherwise, I would tell you what chapter and verse. It's either in Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. So you have only 4 books to read. In there, Jesus said, I came here legally. That's a term that wanderers use. Okay. I came here legally. What that means is I'm not a walk-in. A walk-in is someone who comes in and takes over a body and possesses the body, either by force or by choice. Most of the time, it has to be by choice. And even the ones that are by force are by choice. Everything is your free will on this planet. Nothing is done against your free will except for taking your free will away from you by proxy, which I'm not going to get involved in right now. Casey and I had this conversation yesterday, so she knows what I'm talking about. So wanderers have to go to the council, okay? The Council of Venus. They have to go to the council and ask permission because there is a quarantine of this solar system, okay? So there's a quarantine in the solar system. Nobody can come down to this planet without permission to come down to this planet. Ra talks about that, and Dawn asked, and it's already been asked, so you guys can go back and listen to it if you want. And he said, what happens if somebody ignores the quarantine and tries to come fly a spaceship down here in 3D reality? And he said it would not be unlike slamming your head into a brick wall, trying to go through a brick wall. You would stop suddenly and you could not penetrate. So when people say, I saw a UFO, well, it's a UFO to us. The governments call them a UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon, not an unidentified flying object anymore. They changed that designation when it became popular. But it's identifiable to them. So they'll tell you that's not unidentified because they know what it is. Even these balloons that they shot down, and they've only really released that they have balloons floating, and what they weren't Chinese, these other 3 that were shot down, 4 now, 5 if you count the ones in Canada. They're like, well, we don't know what those are. They're if they don't, it's because they belong to the deep state, right? Or there was kids playing around, all right? Because they know what it is. There are no aliens on this planet. Well, okay, there are that are not human. There are non-humans on this planet, but there's nobody on this planet that isn't from here already. Okay, we do have interstellar travel, and some people do come from other planets, but they come here with permission. All right. And there's people that live in the earth. I know some of you might like check out when I'm talking like this now and go, okay, now he's gone crazy. Right. But know that. And this is what Ra's talking about here, that some of those people from a different planet, which would be aliens from Mars and Maldek, are on this planet as humans. They just don't know it. Their higher self does. Okay, let's continue.
Continuing for a long period in your measurement, with those of mu as you call this race or mind/body/spirit social complex. The next attempt was long in coming and occurred approximately 13,000 of your years ago when some intelligent information was offered to those of Atlantis, this being of the same type of healing and crystal working of which we have spoken previously. The next attempt was 11,000 of your years ago. These are approximations as we are not totally able to process your space/time continuum measurement system. This was in what you call Egypt, and of this we have also spoken. The same beings which came with us returned approximately 3,500 years later in order to attempt to aid the South American mind/body/spirit social complex once again. However, the pyramids of those so-called cities were not to be used in the appropriate fashion. Therefore, this was not pursued further. There was a landing approximately 3,000 of your years ago also in your South America, as you call it. There were a few attempts to aid your peoples approximately 2,300 years ago, this in the area of Egypt. The remaining part of the cycle, we have never been gone from your 5th dimension and have been working in this last minor cycle to prepare for harvest. 14.5 Questioner, was the Egyptian visit?
Okay, so he's going to get into the Egyptian visit right now. So I want to point out that this is not the cycle. There's a problem with the reference. Dawn, the questioner, was asking about the cycle of ascension and saying that the cycle started 75,000 years ago, and that was to his understanding. He's wrong. Ra did not pick up on that, and Ra continued to talk about the cycles since Ra came, because Dawn said 75,000 years ago, and that was the first time that Ra came here to try and aid the people of this planet. Okay. And we weren't stuck then, but we got stuck because of Ra and the information that they brought. And that's why they're still here. They're in the 5th dimension. He just said that, the 5th density. And that's where they reside, that entire species. And literally they talked about, and these other people that had came here, in these different time periods that you hear him talking about 12,000 or 13,000 years ago, 11,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, 2,300 years ago, and each time in different places, one of which was here in Central America and South America. And those people weren't doing things right. And those were the ones that actually left the planet because they had to be culled because they were too bloodthirsty and they were bloodletting and killing everybody, thinking the gods would return. And they got on the wrong track. And then there's other people in South America who disappeared as well. Those were the ones that ascended in mass, millions and millions of people. Both of those races disappeared off the face of the earth. And you can look this up in real time. And you can see that they have no idea where these people went. Millions and millions of people from Central America and South America and North America that just disappeared. And they did not integrate into other societies. They did not die. There's not bodies in the streets like in Pompeii, where there's proof that everybody died because of Mount Vesuvius blew up and killed them, the ones that didn't get out. There is no bodies, and they don't know where these people went, because usually if the land dries up, just like what happened here in the United States with the Dust Bowl back in the 20s and 30s, they ran out of food and everybody dispersed and went to other places. They all migrated and moved away, and then eventually moved back in when the Dust Bowl ended. They moved back into the central part of the United States that was just a Dust Bowl at the time. Okay. But you see that in the United States, the population all around that area exploded. And then eventually people moved back into the area where they came from. And so the population then reshifted. That didn't happen in the Americas. Those people disappeared off of the earth because one entire group ascended. So when they died, they were not reborn in that area to those people. Okay. They left. And there, so that their buildings and everything was just there, and we found them in the jungle. Okay, and then the other group were had to be taken off the planet because they were too dangerous and they were killing everyone and each other and eating each other and all that. So that was a mistake, and God said, okay, we need to bring them all back, have them stay up here and heal, and then have them reintegrate into the world. But they didn't come back in the same place. So for a long time, there was no one living in South America. And then people started migrating there, and then they found the stuff. And those are the people that are descendants now that found this stuff. Same thing happened in pre-dynastic Egypt. And then all of a sudden, people are there living in Egypt, but they don't know. They're like, we don't know when the pyramid was built. We don't know what this stuff was for. They just surmise that. And they tell you, well, the pyramid must have been a place for the king to go into a sarcophagus. But when we found the chamber, there was nobody in there, and it must have been stolen, because, that's what greedy people do. But they have no idea what it was for. But yet, all around the world, there was pyramids that were built exactly like the Giza Plateau. 3 structures. Teotihuacan is exactly the same. I have reels on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok that you can look at, that I show you that the Teotihuacan pyramidal complex. I put that next to below, side by side, compared to a motherboard of all of our electronics. And it is exactly the same complex as a motherboard that runs our computers that was on the ground. And that Teotihuacan 3 pyramid structure is identical to the one at the Giza Plateau in Egypt, and the same as the one in China and in other places around the world. And they were all built exactly mirroring the constellation of Orion, specifically Orion's belt, and that they believed, and this is in my reels in the picture, that they believed that those things had properties that opened stargates and travel to other dimensions and other places around the universe. And Ra alludes to that as well. Okay, and there's other places around where there's pyramids. Okay, and then the Necronomicon, but apparently the book that I have and that Casey has doesn't have that, but I haven't read it all yet. But I remember reading it, and I think it was a different version of what I'm reading now. There are different versions of the Necronomicon out there that actually tell the story of over in the area of Mesopotamia and what is modern day Iraq and Iran and Saudi Arabia, and a little bit further east from that. They had talked about, it was the Mad Arab, talked about discovering ruins under ruins of a culture that was built up. That's why they build cities on top of cities on top of cities, by the way. They want to destroy completely the memory of the city that they're building on top of, because they don't want us knowing the memory of what's going on. Okay. And not just the Necronomicon, but that's one example where they talk about this power of these pyramids and obelisks around the world. Why was it so important for the Europeans when they went to Egypt, when they conquered Egypt, to take these big pillars and take them back and put one in England and one in Germany and one in France and one in Italy and one here in America, built in the capital of the United States of America? Why was that important for them to build? You need to look into that and ask yourself that question. Why would it be important for them to have an Egyptian obelisk that is 40 stories tall in their capital cities? What is that? Why have they done that? But they have. Okay. I don't want to get into that discussion. I could, but it would take, I've already been an hour and a half now, so I'm not going to. Let's continue with this narrative.
Of 11,000 years ago, the only one where you actually walked the earth. Ra, I am Ra. I understand your question distorted in the direction of selves rather than other selves. We of the vibratory sound complex, RA, have walked among you only at that time. 14.6 Questioner, I understood you to say in an earlier session that pyramids were built to ring the earth. How many pyramids were built? Ra, I am Ra. There are 6 balancing pyramids and 52 others built for additional healing and initiatory work among your mind/body/spirit social complexes.
Okay, so 6 that are for balance, like the Giza Plateau, the one largest pyramid is one of the 6. So that means there are 6 pyramidal complexes on this earth that has one pyramid that is as large as the one at Giza. Okay, and I show you 3 of them, or 3 of them, in the reel that I show with a picture that shows the places on this planet where there are 3 pictures from the sky taken of those pyramidal complexes. But Raj just said there are 6 of those, and then 52 other pyramids. So if there's 6, there's 2 more for each one of those 6. So that's 12, and minus that from 52, and there's 40 other pyramids worldwide. And he doesn't even talk about the obelisks. He might. Let's see if he does here. Okay, but there's a reason for all this. Let's see if he gets into it now. I'm not going to cut it off because I've already been talking more than Ra has. Let's let Ra continue.
14.7 Questioner, what is a balancing pyramid? Ra, I am Ra. Imagine, if you will, the many force fields of the earth in their geometrically precise web. Energies stream into the earth planes, as you would call them, from magnetically determined points. Due to growing thought form distortions in understanding of the law of one, the planet itself was seen to have the potential for imbalance. The balancing pyramidal structures were charged with crystals which drew the appropriate balance from the energy forces streaming into the various geometrical centers of electromagnetic energy which surround and shape the planetary sphere. 14.8 Questioner, let me...
Okay, before we get into that, because Peter is getting ahead of us, right? He knows where we're going. And I'm going to put it up on the screen for people to actually see what Peter's saying, right? And then I'll read it to you. He says, I'm still trying to figure out the Queen's Chamber. So and what he's trying to figure out, well, I'll get into that, right? He tells about that. The Queen's Chamber, he's talking about the Pyramid of Giza, okay, in Cairo, is that will be revealed in the beginning of the end of this year. They will find something in the Eye of Horus, because the Eye of Horus is, in fact, this is not him now, I'm saying this, but let me finish what he said, and then I'll explain what he means. The people who find it will reveal to the world, and I can't hide the truth, right? And so he's and thank you, Peter, right? And he knows. And let me explain what he's referring to. Okay, the Eye of Horus, which some people say the Eye of Ra, and they're wrong. It's not the Eye of Ra, it's the Eye of Horus. And by the way, Ra, who's talking, is that Ra from Egypt, by the way. Okay, that was in the very beginning when they said, we are Ra, I am Ra, and we are communicate now. And they said, we know of a Ra in our history in Egypt. Are you have anything to do with that Ra? And they said, yes, we are Ra. We walked among your people. This is what he was referring to, that 11,000 years ago, they actually were here in a physical way. Now, the Eye of Horus, if you look at this, and I put this in almost everything. In fact, it's in my opening credits as well. I show you the eye of Horus. The eye of Horus is in fact your third eye and the pituitary gland. So when you look at the eye of Horus, and then that little strip that comes down that almost looks like your tonsils in the back in your mouth is in fact your pituitary gland in your brain. So if you were to look at a bust of a human from the side at the pituitary gland, and you put that overlay, the pituitary gland and the eye, where the third eye resides, right next to or above the lizard brain in the human brain, you would realize that what the Egyptians were showing you with the eye of Horus was the third eye being awakened and how it's attached to the pituitary gland, and because the pituitary gland is where the energy from your brain goes out to the rest of your body. And literally for men, the pituitary gland tells the testicles to make testosterone and to make sperm in the human body. But not only that, the pituitary gland also, they have found, activates a lot of other things. So the Kundalini energy that comes up through your body goes into the pituitary gland and up the pituitary gland to the cavity that is the third eye and awakens the third eye. Those of you who are in the Law of One chat group and the Returning of the Old Ways, Peter GV, who's not with us, he said he was going to be listening, but he hasn't said anything in the chat. That means he's probably over on my channel because he said he was up in the mountains today and he was going to listen in. He might be listening in, but not making any comments. But he posted video from Drumvalo Melchizedek, who talked about the third eye back in 2011, about awakening the third eye when you're drawing up the Kundalini energy, and that the third eye is looking straight up, and you have to then train it to be able to come down to look out through your forehead, and how to show yourself by taking your hand and opening it up, into that, loser L, and then take that L and put it right at your nose, and then right on your nose, like you're thumbing your face at somebody from your nose, and then touch your forehead with your fingertip, and that's where your third eye resides. Or is it your mouth? I think it's the mouth. It's not the chin, because it might be the chin. Watch the video. But those of you in the class chat and Returning to the Old Ways chat, you guys got to see that video where they talked about that. And so the Eye of Horus is their depiction of that knowledge of the awakening, the third eye wide, which I'm wearing that shirt right now that says third eye wide, 3EW, third eye wide, of the awakening of the third eye. And so the chamber that he's referring to, Ra talks about, and that's why he said we covered this before. Ra talks about the Queen's chamber is in fact the place where you would go there to open the third eye. And Peter's alluding to, scientists are actually going to discover that and announce that. Whether they're going to announce it to the entire world or not, he's not sure, and that's why he said he can't hide the truth. The scientists are going to prove it and say, wow, this really does change the course of your third eye, and it's designed to awaken the third eye. And that's just what Ra is referring to here. And so Peter is referring to, now know this, if you don't know who Peter is, know that Peter called 2 years ago to the day and hour when the Queen of England was going to be deceased, when they were going to announce it. Okay. Peter knew this, and he got deleted on the internet because they were saying he was, lying about the Queen and wishing her dead, when he wasn't. He was just saying when. He said when her husband was going to die, the prince. It happened on the day Peter said, 2 years after he said it. And the day that the Queen died, Peter had said 2 years prior. I know this because I've known Peter for many years. Peter and I, our souls have known each other for hundreds of thousands of years. We came here to this planet together with a bunch of you. You guys just don't remember us yet, but you will. Okay. So let's continue with what's going on here. And by the way, that's why when Jamie, if you're still here, when you had said, talking about me during one of my reads, and you had mentioned the Orion coalition of light, Peter and I are literally part of that coalition. Literally came here from Orion, from Orion's belt. Peter is from the planet on the right-hand side. If you're looking at Orion, I'm from the planet, or what we would call the planet, the universe, on the right side, and I'm from the one in the center. Or I think maybe Peter is part of the same, because we're both Celts. But I'm a half-breed. Peter's more of a Celt, and that's why he's more earth-based, where I am very earth-based, but I also have that warrior tendency because I have some of the Viking DNA as well. in my makeup of my soul. So that's what my makeup of my body does in this lifetime. Okay, here we go.
Make a synopsis and you tell me if I am correct. All of these visits for the last 75,000 years were for the purpose of giving to the people of Earth an understanding of the law of one, and this way allow them to progress upward through the fourth, fifth, sixth densities. This was to be a service to Earth. The pyramids were used also in giving the law of one in their own way. The balancing pyramids, I'm not quite sure of. Am I right so far? Ra, I am Ra. You are correct to the limits of the precision allowed by language. 14.9 Questioner.
I love that. Snarky Raw. He was being snarky earlier, and now you are right to the limits of being able to speak about it.
Did the balancing pyramid cause the Earth from changing its axis? Ra, I am Ra. This query is not clear. Please restate. 14.10 Questioner. Does the balancing refer to balancing of the individual who is initiated in the pyramid, or does it refer to the physical balancing of the Earth on its axis in space? Ra, I am Ra. The balancing pyramidal structures could be and were used for individual initiation. However, the use of these pyramids was also designed for the balancing of the planetary energy web. The other pyramids are not placed properly for Earth healing but for healing of mind/body/spirit complexes.
Right, Peter's referring to Indiana Jones there, and he said Indiana Jones in the Destiny. He says in the new Indiana Jones film, the Dial of Destiny. He said Spielberg. He furthers that Spielberg. There's a method to his madness that he says that's all he can say beyond the script. So yeah, and pay attention to that. Writers that are awake, directors, film producers that are not woke, that are awake. They do make these films and books on purpose because they're trying to get past algorithms and ideologies and try to get messages to you and code them just like the letters to the churches, just like the Exodus, just like the revelation of Jesus Christ, where literally it's teaching you, if you're paying attention, and they say it over and over, let him who has the eyes or the mind to understand see. And that's because those are the messages that they're telling you to prompt you. There's more here than what I'm just saying on the surface. So on the surface, they're saying something that is three-dimensional. And I warn the churches, why is it that the revelations in the letters to the churches in the Revelations, there's 7 of them? Again, read those with the chakras in front of you and look at the chakra, starting at the red ray chakra, which is the base root chakra, and read that first letter with the understanding that he's speaking to about that chakra. And you'll find that what he's telling you is how to align that chakra and what that chakra is about and how to fix it. And then moving up through the progression all the way up to enlightenment. And that's why he said, I am the key to the door. Without me. And that's why he says the way to heaven is through me. Through me, he's the door and the key. The key is his word. That's the word of God, the logos. Logos is the ancient Akkadian, when people call it a Greek because they were Greeks, the ancient Akkadian word for the breath of God, right? Pneuma was the breath of God. That was the state of being, right? And then the word of God, the word was logos, and logos literally means love. Jesus says, I am the word. And so he was saying that through him is the way. And so his words, what he tells you is the knowledge is the key. And through his understanding, his inner standing was the way. So that was exactly what Lao Chi said 640 years before Jesus was even born about the way. That's the Tao Te Chi, the book of the way. That's what those words mean. The Tao Te Chi means the book of the way, and the way is exactly the same that Jesus was saying. And the Buddha, who was also alive at the exact same time as Lao Chi in the same country of China, also had the same proclamation. So there, we believe, those of us in the spiritual field, the theologians, that Lao Chi and the Buddha and Jesus Christ were in fact the same soul. Okay, coming here one of the 12 times. And I have depicted on Ancient Aliens Worldwide, I don't have it, I'm going to have to find the picture that shows you the correlation of all these people, including someone in Egypt who will go unnamed for a moment, in Egypt, who was also a deity who did the exact same thing that Jesus did. Okay. And I have 7 of them that I have personally researched and put together, but there are 12 that we're aware of. And those 7 don't include Lao Chi and the Buddha. Okay. So Pamela says, I'm sorry, I'm new, but I'm new when Ra said there about the pyramids being here for the thinking there was needed for healing. He's saying they, I always say he too, but it's they. It's a whole entire species. It's thinking as one person, saying that because we don't need the pyramids to heal with our energy, that I misunderstood from the people that built the pyramids. Is that right? That's a very good question. At the time, the pyramids were built to show these things to the human race, and they were built to energize the planet in what we're doing now without the pyramids. So I'm a Reiki master teacher, and I've been a Reiki master teacher for a very, very long time. I started my first attunements of 1 and 2 were more than 35 years ago. I can heal now as well, if not better, than you would get if you had gone into the pyramid when it was active. And this is where Ra is referring to that we don't need the pyramids anymore because we have moved as a hive mind complex, as a species, beyond the needing for these 3-dimensional objects to do. We're enlightening ourselves and opening our third eye, where there was a time when you would go into the pyramid to do that. We needed the tools. And this is why in magic, when we teach you magic in the very beginning, magic with a C, not with the K, we teach you to have tools until you learn that you're the tool and that these tools you're using are an extension of yourself, and you don't need a wand and you don't need, but for children to focus their energy, we give you a tool in the beginning. And this is what they were doing spiritually on the planet. We're giving us the tool and this big, giant, scary place that you would go into. And it literally is vibrating at a certain vibration and is resonating through your body, and it's activating in you things. So when you went in there, you would have this epiphany and this spiritual awakening, and you would come out and it would be this big thing in your mind. We're doing that with ayahuasca and DMT and marijuana. We're doing that without. We're doing that now just through meditation. At that time, 12,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago, 75,000 years ago, the human race was so far away from the light. This is why the devil was unleashed onto the earth. That was a long, long time ago. That the devil in that Bible, in those Bibles where they tell that story, that are all from around the world that were put together in that Judeo-Christian doctrine, that reference was a concept of evil, not just a person. It's the entire concept of everyone who is in service to self was unleashed onto the earth to wreak havoc on the earth, and that time is over. And so the Ragnarok that they talked about, the Vikings talked about 20,000 years ago, and the end times that Jesus talked about 3,000 or 2,000 years ago, almost 2,000 years ago. It'll be 2,000 years ago in 2031, because that was when he was 1. So in 2030 was approximately when he was born. It would be 2,000 years since he was born, because he died when he was 31. So in 2031, that will be actually the 2,000 years since Jesus passed. So truthfully, in the year 2000, the millennial, which coincided with what? All kinds of changes on this planet. That was actually the 2,000 year mark of Jesus's birth. Just saying. If you're paying attention. So the reference here is we don't need the pyramids anymore, because Dawn asked, should we reactivate the pyramids? And Ra said to them, you don't need to. They're not needed anymore, because we're doing it as individuals now, and as a societal structure, we're enlightening ourselves and opening our third eye without the tools of physical in the physical plane. Everything, you have to remember, at one time, everything had to be a physical manifestation because we were not aware of the non-physical. And now that we're becoming more aware of the non-physical, we don't need the physical as much. So we don't need that to have all those places where we have to go to have the experience, because we're able to achieve that now. Some of you are achieving a higher resonance right now in this audience than the entire species 3,000 years ago was capable of doing without assistance. That's why people had to use drugs drugs more so in the past to open their mind. And some people are still doing it because you can quickly transport yourself. I was just watching a video on Blue Lotus and how quickly that transports you into a different place. Look at the 60s here in America with all the flower power and the drugs and everything that everybody was doing at the time to achieve enlightenment. We're doing it now with none of that. No one who's ever done any hallucinogen or any kind of drug. But then some people are still, even though they want to have that experience. I've thought about doing it. I've smoked marijuana most of my life. I just quit about almost a year ago now. I just stopped doing it and gave it to my sister. Here, take this pot and smoke it. Okay. And so she did. So it's not like I quit and I'm never going to do it again. But my point here is that I'm still able to achieve these breakthroughs without drugs. And there was a time when we needed either a place to go that was a Stonehenge or one of these henges, or a Kiva here in the United States with these Indian mounds, and or the Irish mounds that are underground. These places we had to have those caves to go into to create this scenario, and then we would imbibe either a drink or eat something that would take us into a spiritual realm. We're doing it now without all of that. So that's what Ra's referring to. All right, let me continue.
It came to our attention that your density was distorted towards what is called by our distortion/understanding of third density, a premature aging process. We were attempting to aid in giving the mind/body/spirit complexes of third density on your planetary sphere more of a time/space continuum in one incarnation pattern in order to have a fuller opportunity to learn/teach the laws or ways of the primal distortion of the law of one, which is love. 14.11 Questioner, I will make this statement. You can tell me if I am correct. The way I understand it, the balancing pyramids were to do what we call increase the lifespan of entities here so that they would gain more wisdom of the law of one while in the physical at one time. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct.
All right, I want to stop real quick because I want to finish because what Penny said, she says, yeah, I smoke pot to keep me from going too far. There's a reason why it's called high, guys, right? I got high. You take the drug and I got high. There's a reason that they say that. It's subconscious when someone said it. They didn't realize that, and maybe they did originally, but when you're getting high, it's called high because it's raising your vibration. When you take these drugs that they say, or, they don't want you to take them. Why? Because they don't want you to become enlightened. Why? Right? That's the same thing as the corruption of all the knowledge. They don't want you to have that knowledge that unlocks. That's why the band in the 60s called themselves the Doors. Okay, because they were breaking down doors. They were, through drugs, they were opening doors and seeing things that no one was wanting them to see and singing about those things, right? And then if you're on drugs and you're on these drugs and your vibration goes into a higher place when you smoke pot or when you do that, if it affects you that way, because some people could smoke pot and it doesn't affect them. But those of you that it does, it's called being high because your vibration has now pulled you to a place where you're outside of the realm of the contact by your thinking mind and outside of the realm of the contact of your ego. Most people achieve that when they smoke enough, marijuana or get the THC level high enough in your body. And I refer to here above 60% and somewhere around 100%. Ayahuasca and DMT gets you at about 200%. That's why Penny said I smoke pot to keep me from getting too high, because you can bring yourself down. Say you do ayahuasca or DMT and you go out and you're out there. If you also smoke some pot, it lowers that. Or if you're doing Blue Lotus, be careful with that and some of the other ones, because those, you could do too much. And mushrooms and things like that. But it literally pushes you outside the boundaries. This is what we do when we meditate. We're doing that as well. And we're putting ourselves in a place that is above the thinking mind and above the ego, and you're still there. And you're realizing, I am the witnesser. I am the experiencer. I am not the thinking mind, and I am not the ego. And that's where they don't want you to be. So they've made sure to outlaw anything that can take your mind to a spiritual level and give you a spiritual. That's why they had to close the pyramids down, and they had to tell you that they didn't exist and they were just the king's chambers and the queen's chamber and a burial place that got robbed and knocked down these things and buried them. The Chinese buried all of their pyramids so they couldn't be seen from space or anyone flying over. They don't want people to know about it. Why? Because they don't want you to be enlightened. right? I love Casey said, puff, puff, pass, right? Puff, puff, pass. Don't bogart my weed, man. Pass it a one hit and go, right? Or maybe two. Take a hit, take a big hit, inhale it, hand it on, right? I agree. But I usually have enough pot to where it doesn't matter that much. But if you just sit there and smoke a whole bowl and don't share, right? And you're a bogart, dude. What are you doing? Everybody else wants to get high too. Hand it over here. There's plenty. You're not gonna. It's not like you're starving to death, right? I love you, Casey. You're funny. Right, Penny said, "I'm glad somebody understood me." Of course, right? And Peter too, right? And he says that's why he says, and what that's why they changed the name to the Devil's Lotus to hide the truth from the people, with weed and the Blue Lotus, and that's what he's referring to. They do that with everything. If you have any psychic abilities, it's the devil. Casey and I just talked about this the other day. It's the devil or it's a demon possessing you. They don't want you to do anything that's going to enlighten you in any way. So they've all been corrupted. They're not all evil. The church itself is not evil. So know that I'm not saying, I have many titles from many different religions, and there's a reason why I keep those titles and I continue. And it's the religions in and of themselves are not. The people that are doing it in and of themselves are not, but they have been corrupted at the top. And those people that changed the rules were corrupt, and they made it the same caste system that everything else is in your life. Your school, your job, and the governmental system, everything in your life is set up to tell you that. Then they even lied about, as above, so below. That's a lie. It's as below, so above. That's in the Christian Bible, where God says, and Jesus is telling you that God said, as is on earth shall too be in heaven. What you unleash on earth, I shall too unleash in heaven. So that it's literally opposite of what they tell you, but they want you to believe there is a higher power than you. So they say, as above, so below, as without, so within, as with the universe, so with the soul. It's always somebody other than you. But the true saying is, as within, so without, as below, so above. As the spirit goes, so does the universe. And that is the truth of it. And that's the knowledge that Jesus was teaching, Muhammad was teaching, Moses was teaching, all these people, the Tao Te Ching from Lao Chi was teaching, the Buddha was teaching, even Thor and Odin, they were teaching it. Martin Luther was teaching it. All these people, Mahatma Gandhi was teaching it. Stephen Biko was teaching it. Martin Luther King Jr., Martin Luther, these people in the world were teaching that. And those people in your home country. If I missed any, I tried to cover as much of the world as I could think of right then. Those people were trying to teach you the way, the true way. The true way is all down from there up, and up from your down. It is different from the opposite of what you think. That's why they took the evil religion, the one that they pretend is Satanism, took the cross and turned it upside down, took the Star of David or the pentacle and turned it upside down. The Star of David is a 2D rendering of the heart chakra. Okay, and I show that if you look at the Star of David, which is the masculine and feminine energy, the Kundalini energy, the pyramid pointing up, or the triangle pointing upward, and the triangle pointing downward. The downward is the feminine. It's that V shape of the womb where the creation happens, because the goddess creates in her womb, and the goddess is the only one who can create. And then the masculine is the phalanx, the phalanx, the penis pointing upward. But if you look at the heart chakra, the 3D rendering of the heart chakra, it is, in fact, those are versions of it. So the Star of David, the pentacle, and the like, even the pyramid in the circle, or the Vitruvian man, is also another mathematical equation that means the exact same thing. Okay. So, okay, let's continue here.
However, the pyramids not called by us by the vibrational sound complex, balancing pyramids, were more numerous and were used exclusively for the above purpose and the teach/learning of healers to charge and enable these processes. 14.12 Questioner. George Van Tassel built a machine in our western desert called an Integratron. Will this machine work for that purpose, of increasing the lifespan? Ra. I am Ra. The machine is incomplete and will not function for the above mentioned purpose. 14.13.
However, I think it's Valerie Yuvanov, don't quote me, but I think it's Valerie, who is building pyramids now, many in Russia and all over the world. And he's also working to help excavate over in the Philippines, different places. where they found pyramidal complexes and big giant places. If you know anything about the Philippines and that stuff that's over there, I know because I'm friends with Valerie and I'm friends with Bruce Cunningham, who's also assisting. He lives in the Philippines. Friends with these guys for years, and we're worked with them and the Egyptians to get people to go to these places so that they could make money to continue the digs. In fact, so much so that when the people who were digging out in the desert in Egypt, you guys don't know about this because it hasn't been told to the world, but I know about it for 5 years now. They found a church, a Christian church, 7 clicks outside of Cairo, a Christian church that is one of the oldest Christian churches found, and especially the oldest one ever found in Africa. Okay. And I have pictures of it. I can't show them to you because the Egyptian government clapped down and took control of the dig. They were trying to get the information out to the world before the Egyptian government took control of the dig. And so the Egyptian government contacted myself and the American government because I live in America, and they forced me to keep quiet about it because they own it, because it's on their land. So I could not get the information out. I was trying to work on getting it out by other means, and I'm not going to tell you who I was contacting with that because I don't have permission from the 2 people that I was contacting. But you probably, if you know anything about archaeology and history, you know these people's names, but they don't want to talk about it either because we have all been threatened by these governments because it's theirs, and they will charge money just like the Egyptians charge money now in Cairo. For you to go in and see the things. And of course, then they only tell you the narrative that they want you to know. That's why, what's his name? Zahi Hawass, who no longer is the curator, who used to be the curator and would take you on tours. He would take you on, and when he would start you, before he started you outside the big pyramid, he would preface the whole thing with, and I literally know people who were there and actually told me what he said word for word and recorded it, where he literally said, so if you guys think that pyramids were made by aliens, you're fucking stupid and you're idiots. That's what he would say. He was rude. They didn't want anyone to know anything about the pyramids other than they were built by our kings of Egypt in a time when we ruled the earth. And that's the narrative that they're trying to paint to everybody because it draws people in to come and see the 7 wonder of the world and pay money. Okay. So any other narrative had to be squashed. So this church, because it was Christian, it doesn't fit into their narrative. So they're excavating it, of course, because they want to know when it was from. I had beautiful, beautiful pictures from inside, and the colors were amazing. The church was amazing, and they were excavating it out in the desert. And it goes back to the time of right after Jesus Christ was crucified. So this church is almost 2,000 years old, and I've known about it for almost 7 years now. And officially it doesn't exist. Okay. This is the kind of stuff that we're up against. That's why Peter said, I'm not going to hide the truth. Okay. Because there are certain things, and I just gave you information that you can take and look it up and you might be able to find it. But you could also say, I just made that up and I'm lying. And it's not true. I really did have pictures given to me, and I was trying to get them out to the world. And the government of Egypt talked to the government of the United States. That government spoke to me and said that you cannot give that information out because you do not own it, nor the rights to it. And then Facebook, of course, said, I own the rights to the pictures you posted on Facebook, and those got taken down. But anybody, if you were around 6 or 7 years ago now, 6 years ago, 5, 6 years ago now, you may have seen the photos when I posted them. Okay. So this is the kind of stuff that goes on. Even though we're here to tell you this information, we still get pushback. Drumvala would tell you the same thing. And that's why he stopped working with the scientists. And that's why I stopped working with the scientists prior to that. And again, in 2012, just like he did. Although I wasn't working with him and didn't know him at the time. But we were working with the same people because we're part of the same coalitions. Okay. So let's continue here.
Free questioner, who gave George the information on how to build it? Ra, I am Ra. There were 2 contacts which gave the entity with vibratory sound complex, George, this information. One was of the Confederation. The second was of the Orion Group. The Confederation was caused to find the distortion towards non-contact due to the alteration of the vibrational mind complex patterns of the one called George. Thus, the Orion group used this instrument. However, this instrument, though confused, was a mind/body/spirit complex devoted at the heart to service to others, so the, shall we say, worst that could be done was to discredit this source. 14.14 Questioner, would there be any value to the people of this planet now, at this time, to complete this machine? Ra, I am Ra. The harvest is now. There is not at this time any reason to include efforts along these distortions towards longevity, but rather to encourage distortions toward seeking the heart of self, for this which resides clearly in the violet ray energy field will determine the harvesting of each mind/body/spirit complex. 14.15 Questioner, going back to the start of this 75,000 year period, there was the harvesting 25,000 years after the start, which would make it 50,000 years ago, I would assume. Can you tell me how many were harvested from our planet at that time? Ra, I am Ra. The harvest was none. 14.16 Questioner,
Okay, now why is that important? Think about what he just said. 50,000 years ago, there was a harvest. That means the souls who were ready and generated and ready to ascend to the next plane, to the fourth density on this entire planet. 50,000 years ago, there was probably 1 billion people on the planet. No one ascended. Not one. Let's continue.
was no harvest? What about 25,000 years ago? Was there a harvest then? Ra, I am Ra. A harvesting began taking place in the latter portion, as you measure time/space, of the second cycle, with individuals finding the gateway to intelligent infinity. The harvest of that time, though extremely small, were those entities of extreme distortion towards service to the entities which now were to repeat the major cycle. These entities, therefore, remained in third density although they could, at any moment/present nexus, leave this density through use of intelligent infinity. 14.17 Questioner, then the harvest 25,000 years ago, the entities who could have been harvested.
Yes, Peter. All right, I'm going to stop this right here because of what Peter just said, talking about Easter this year, right? A new look at Easter this year. It's the third equinox on the moon of this millennial, right? That hasn't happened since Jesus, when Jesus was crucified, was the last time that happened. Okay. So remember what I was talking about the years, and since Jesus was actually crucified, when Jesus was born, there was a reason I was alluding to that. And Peter is picking up on that because this equinox that's coming, that's going to be on Easter, the equinox that is the third equinox, hasn't happened in that order. And there's that number 3 again. Hasn't happened in that order since when the time of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. 2,000-year cycle. Okay. This is why I was alluding to that earlier, and Peter went further with that just now. Okay. So now let's continue. If you guys have questions about that, ask about that, right? So, right? Yeah. Descend into darkness, 3 months and 7 days, then he was taken down, right? So he's talking about with Jesus and everything that he did with his ascension, where he went through into hell and then ascended into heaven. Okay, let's continue. So 2,000-year cycle is coming to fruition with the third equinox on Easter. At the same exact thing happened, and the last time that happened on this planet was 2,000 years ago when Jesus was crucified, and it's going to happen this year. Let's continue. That's why I said the math, if you do the math, it's off. And that's why I was alluding to that, where the math is off, because if this is in fact the year of our Lord, Anno Domini, which means in the year of our Lord, 2023, Jesus died at 31, and they started counting from 0 when Jesus was born. So 31 years after he was born, he died at 31 or 33 years of age, somewhere between there. That would suggest that the 2,000-year span would be 2031 to 2033, correct? However, the 2,000-year cycle of the moon is telling us that it's 2020 2023 is the 2,000-year cycle. That means that our 374 days or 364 day and a quarter days to our planet, because our planet has gotten off a kilter, is not in fact our right. So our calendar is slightly wrong. The Hebrews have been telling us that forever, that the Greco-Roman calendar that we're using right now is wrong. Our body clocks are on a 25-hour clock, yet we're on a 24-hour cycle on our planet. So something's changed on this planet, and it is off. And we're counting, and we have leap year every 4 years or every 7 years or something. No one knows exactly what leap year is and what we do and how we add a day. It's supposed to be every 40 years or every 4 years, because we only have 364 and a quarter days. But even that's wrong. So, but according to the cycles of the universe, the 2,000-year mark is this year. And it is, in fact, going to be on Easter. And this is why the activation has been activated. I didn't even tell Casey this when we were talking yesterday. This is why we had this 3 year, there's the number 3 again, 3-year activation, and why that we just had literally a solar flare activation that started on January 2nd and ended on February 11. Do the math on those numbers and prime numbers and fractals, and that actually makes sense. 11 being an ascended master number, the lowest ascended master number of the life number, of 11, 22, and 33, of which I am a 33. Did not even know what that meant when the oracle told me. Okay. But so what Peter is also suggesting about the pyramid, is that this year in 2023 is a different year in reality than what we're being told, and that there is an activation that has been told by the Hopi Indians, by the Aborigines in Australia, and all around the world, including the Incans and the Mayans. And that whole entire scenario would suggest that the age of Aquarius has begun. Baktun 12 has ended, and Baktun 13, and there's that number 12 and the number 13 again. And what is 13 but 1 and 3? And when you go 3, 6, 9, 12, and then when you the energy of 3 plus 3 equals 6, and that's the energy of the humans creating, and the energy of space-time, or the nature and space-time, which is the charm of making. And then I'll give you the ancient Irish, not the Welsh version, but I can give you the Welsh version as well, which is also on one of my reels. Thank you, Peter, for bringing this up. The charm of making is anal nathrach uthvas bethod dothhiel dienve. And if you know it in the ancient Welsh, it's just slightly different. And in fact, you say the C as a C, and I say it more as an Irish compound lettering, where you would say dothhiel dienve. And otherwise, that means all that is of nature and time space do heed my intention. The 3 energy is your thoughts and intentions, and you're calling to the other 3 energy, which is the planet or the space-time, the nature and space-time, all that is reality. And then you put your intentions into that. So 3 plus 3 becomes 6. Then you take that energy, and again, you take your intention and your creative energy, and 3 plus 6 equals 9. And 9 is the hex boson, the God energy. And then you take that God energy and you do something with it again. So you again add 3, your energy to it and your intentions, and it becomes 12, which is now the creation energy, but you're not creating with it. It is the word of God. It is the logos now, and you have created the energy that has a potentiality to then create. And when you add your energy to that again, you don't become 15 from 12. It is you as one becoming 1. So it's the 13. It's now becoming the 3 energy who is combining with the 12 energy, and you are becoming the 1. And then when you go step through that energy to create, you become the 0 point, the creator. And all of creation and all of the energy to the universe, infinite wisdom, infinite love, infinite energy, and infinite possibility and potentiation is now yours to control. So now here we are at this crossroads, which again is bringing into light the 3 energy at a 2,000 year on a certain time. And we have this all of this correlation with the mathematics, those of us who are in the know about. And when we explain it like I just did to you, probably half of you went, I have no idea what he just fucking said, but it sounds really crazy and cool. Okay. But those of us, we know this stuff, and it's not like we made it up. Okay, so what we're having happen now is that this activation is happening worldwide, and we have been working at this for generations to happen. And Raw's talking about this 43 years ago, 42 years ago, in what you're hearing right now. Okay, so you have to remember that this information that you're getting from Raw is 42 years old, and he's talking about an information that we got from 1,000 years before that, and he's literally talking about tens of thousands, going back 75,000 years and coming forward and talking about what happened 11,000 years ago. And he's telling this to a man who has the spirituality of the average human 40 years ago. Think about that. People were still having to use psychedelic drugs to understand the universe in any way. Okay. Right. This is why Peter GV, Denise says, I'm so pumped I'm not going to sleep tonight. That's why Peter GV, who's in South Africa and may or may not be listening right now. That's why he says he hates to listen to me before he goes to bed, because I get him going so much he can't sleep. So he always waits till he wakes up in the morning and then listens to what I have to say. So for those of you like Peter and Pamela, that I know we're both in Ireland, it's getting late for you guys. I apologize because it's after midnight there now. All right, let's continue.
To the fourth density remained here in service to this planetary population. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. Thus, there was no harvest.
Okay, I want to stop because we're going to get to the harvest, but Casey said my crown chakra is going crazy right now. That is, in fact, my intent when I do this. Okay, just so you guys know, my intention is always to start at a low level and to pull you guys up into a higher vibration using my words. You have to remember that I am a druid and I have a Merlin title. Okay, so I was also trained as a bard. My voice, my cadence, where I speak, what I say, how I say it. There was one person who caught that live, right? What's his name? Greg. I can't think of his name, but he's into hypnotism, and he realized live and said it. Oh my God, you are forcing everyone to raise their vibration by your voice. Yes, it is what I do. Okay. So hopefully, yes, she says, I'm feeling like I'm wearing a buzzing hat. And that means that I'm doing my job properly in forcing you guys. And I don't mean forcing by against your will, but by using my voice and what I'm saying, I'm literally uplifting you. And sometimes I bring you back down a little bit and pull you back up, because I'm trying to pull everybody from wherever it is that you are in your development. I'm trying to, by the end of when you're tune out, you either get mad and go, I can't listen to this guy anymore, and you leave, or at the end of it, you're like, oh my God, there was so much information he just pounded my brain with. It feels to you like a download, because it is. Let's continue.
But there were harvestable entities who shall choose the manner of their entrance.
Thank you, Greg Bernstein. Thank you. He saw it live. I think Denise, you might have been in the crowd. It was a couple years ago. And he was like, oh my God, you guys are using your voice and your words in a way that is making everyone's vibration go higher. I can feel it. And I'm like, yes, we do that on purpose. Every time.
Into fourth dimension. 14.18 Questioner. Then for the last 2,300 years you have been actively working to create as large a harvest as possible at the end of the total 75,000 year cycle. Can you state with respect to the law of one why you do this, just as a statement of your reasons for this? Ra, I am Ra. I speak for the social memory complex termed RA. We came among you to aid you. Our efforts in service were perverted. Our desire then is to eliminate as far as possible the distortions caused by those misreading our information and guidance. The general cause of service such as the Confederation offers is that of the primal distortion of the law of one, which is service. The one being of the creation is like unto a body, if you will accept this third density analogy. Would we ignore a pain in the leg? A bruise upon the skin? A cut which is festering? No. There is no ignoring a call.
See, now here's where Ra alluded to, they just said that their knowledge was corrupted. When they came here 11,000 years ago, the second time, the first time would have been pre-dynastic Egypt, not post-dynastic. The second time, 11,000 years ago, was post-dynastic Egypt. That was when they came here and the Egyptians changed their religion. Akhenaten changed the religion to the one God and was teaching the law of one. This is what he's referring to when they came here physically. They weren't physically here in the physical sense, but they appeared to be. They used their minds and created an avatar in this reality and walked amongst our this planet and spoke to he who became Akhenaten. And that's why he changed his name to Aten, and started talking about the one true God and the law of one. And the people fought back against that. His reign didn't last long, and they decided they needed to get rid of him and go back to the many gods. So they tried to eradicate his memory on the planet and go back, and they changed everything back to the way it was. Okay, but he literally changed the religion of Egypt and was teaching the law of one, and they didn't like it. Jesus did the same when he got here. Jesus was teaching the law of one. Jesus came from the fifth dimension or fifth density, and came down here to the lower plane and was teaching love and everything that was that people are now starting to learn. And trying to teach the same thing about the laws of the universe and the way. And these other people in history were doing the same thing, and they all got killed for it by nefariousness. Okay. Now they can't kill us because there's more of us than there are of them. It's supposed to be 50-50, but the truth is it's less than 80-20 or more than 80-20. It's more like 86, 86-12 or a little bit less than that. So the percent of people that are evil on this planet is far less, but they make it look like there's more of them than there are of us. They make it look like, because their religion is control. Their religion is power. Their religion is third dimensional. Their religion is 3D balance. So it's control. It's fear. It's sexually abusing you. It's physically abusing you, mentally abusing you, taking away your rights, controlling you, telling you're a slave, telling you that even the freedom that you have in America is something that can be taken away at any time they feel like it, that they're in charge, and that's what they do to make it look like that they own everything and that they are everything, and there's more of them than there are of you, and they can eradicate you, and you're by yourself and you're alone. All of that is a plan, because one of you can stand up against all of them, and they can't do anything about it. Proof: Jesus Christ, Mahatma Gandhi, Stephen Biko, Martin Luther King. Did they all get killed physically? Yes, but their message is still here today. Muhammad, Moses, the people who stood, one person who stood, those people are still remembered thousands of years after their death, hundreds and thousands of years later. And that's because their spirit was true. Arthur, he who can draw the sword from the stone, if that's the person who is pure of heart and is not in service to self, but in service to others. If you read the book, The Sword and the Stone, you find that Arthur drew the sword by mistake because he was trying to get it for his brother, because some kid stole his brother's sword, and his brother was going to try out for the right to try and draw the sword from the stone, and he was chasing the kid, and he happened on the sword and the stone, and he reached over and pulled it out, and everybody saw him, and they told him put it back. His father told him put it back in, and he did. And then a robber knight who was in service to self, pushed him out of the way and tried to pull it out, because he figured, now I can get it, and if I get it, I can be king. You're not a knight, you're a boy. Get away from here. And he couldn't pull it, and everybody kept fighting over each other, and finally the crowd said, let the boy try. And a 14-year-old Arthur walked up and pulled the sword out again, after his father told him to put it back. Okay. So, and it wasn't, he did it because he was doing it for his brother. He was never in service to self. He lost his way later, and that's when Lancelot showed up, and he was arrogant and egotistical, and that was when he fell into darkness. The land fell into darkness, and it was 48 years later when he was old, and by this time he was in his 40s, almost in his 50s. So it was 38 years later. He was almost in his 50s. And all the knights were on the quest of the Grail. And Percival, who at the time when the quest started was 14 or 15 years old himself, is now a man, and he figured it all out and brought the Grail back to, and all this is a fable, brought it was the knowledge once again. He brought to Arthur, you and the land are one. As you thrive, so does the land. As on earth, so in heaven. As within, so without. Do you see here? Are you seeing the parallel? As within, so without. As on earth, so in heaven. The earth itself, it thrives when we do. The earth itself dies when we do. When we are not well, the earth is not well. When we become more upright, like when I was knighted by the church, be upright and speak the truth even when it leads to your death. And safeguard the helpless no matter what. For real, and believe that it's a way of life. You don't get to be knighted by the Roman Catholic Church because you're a robber knight. You have to be, someone has to actually invite you, and you have to be vetted. Okay. That's not a joke. Just to get into the Knights of Columbus, you have to be vetted. But to become knighted, you're a brother knight for the first three, right? And to become a fourth degree and actually be knighted by clergy, you have to be invited, because they don't want robber knights and people that are in service to self anymore. Look at Guy de Lucion. If you guys watch the movie Kingdom of Heaven, it happened in real life. That movie's a documentary. They just can't prove that Balian was in fact Godfrey's son. They don't know for a fact, but there's rumors. And so they just kind of, Ridley Scott just kind of went, well, the whole thing happened right around then. And it's kind of rumored that Balian was in fact Godfrey's son. So while all the things that you see happen in there happened in real life, okay, that wasn't a script that they made up in Hollywood. They wrote it down, and then they downsized the actual carnage and violence, but that all happened the way you see it happen in real life. That's just like Ragnar, Northbrook, and everything in the History Channel's Vikings. That's real history. The only thing that is different in real history is Rollo may not have lived as Ragnar's brother, but he was related to Ragnar. But Rollo may have lived 100 years later. But everything that he did and everything that Ragnar did and everything that you see on that television show happened in real life. Peter will tell you that, because Peter was in that series, and he was in almost every scene in that series. Peter Kyle, who's here in the audience, he'll tell you the story, and he'll tell you more about that history that they didn't get through to the public in the show itself. Okay, and I know that for a fact. You can look up Peter on Facebook, and you can see his pictures of him on set in that television show. He was on that show. So he knows, and Peter is the history book of all the Celts. He knows more about that. I know everything about everything else, and as almost as much, but Peter still knows more about the Celtic Vikings, the Southern Vikings, than I do. So I always refer to him, but I know, the Oracle, one of them calls me the history book because I know everything that goes on in the universe, especially this planet. Okay. And some people think I'm crazy, but then when you find out from other people who've channeled people, they tell you the same thing that I speak of. And then they go, well, he must have read their book or something. It's the only way he could have known that, because their ego doesn't want them to believe that I know anything, right? Here we go. Let's continue. And then I'm going to have to go soon. So I'm going to call it. Know that we're only going to go 8 more minutes, and then I'm getting out of here. Okay, guys? I'm only going to go to 6:30. I should probably go now, but I can manage that. All right. I was talking yesterday, Casey and I talked until like 8:15, so I didn't get mom's dinner until 8:30. So tonight I'm not doing that. Tonight I'll have it before 7. All right, here we go.
We, the entities of sorrow, choose as our service the attempt to heal the sorrow which we are calling analogous to the pains of a physical body complex distortion.
So here, this is where Ra is referring to the pains and sorrows as to what was caused by the corruption of the knowledge of the law of one. And this is what I refer to all the time about what the Crusaders and evil people corrupt all of, because they know the knowledge of this matrix and how it works. And when that was explained to them by Ra, when they came here 11,000 years ago, they corrupted that knowledge and took control of the planet. So the truth is, everyone thinks we've been stuck here for 150,000 years. It just appears that 11,000 years ago was when the corruption started. Okay. And so it's only been 11,000 years since the corruption started. The total corruption wasn't completed until 1938. I don't want to get involved in that, but if you watch Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, you'll see that they were trying to show you that Grover's Mill 1938 in the United States was in fact an alien invasion. That was when the true Orion Crusaders got here and got boots on the ground. Before that, it was, and then of course, when you get here, you have to have a past, a present, and a future, because in this illusion, separation of time is here. So it appears that we've been stuck longer than we actually have been stuck here. And it appears that souls have been here longer than they actually have been in a stuck state. But in truth, in this grand scheme of the universe, if you go outside of this and look when it all actually happened in the 30s. But everybody, when you get here, if I leave and I come back to this place, I have to have a past. So that when I get here, if I get here today, I have to have a past that explains how I got here. So therefore, I have to have a birth, right? It's just, otherwise, I'm a walk-in, and then I'm in a body that has a past, and I've come in and taken control. of the body. So if I'm a walk-in, then there was a soul that was occupying this body that left, and I took the place of the soul that was in it. Okay. And if I came here legally, like Jesus said 2,000 years ago, it meant that he came in and was born in a body that was made for him. And that's what you wanderers have issues. And I haven't gotten into that, but you guys will have issues, all kinds of physical issues, and you'll have all kinds of autoimmune diseases because your vibration doesn't fit in the third dimension, and this body that you're in knows it. And so it doesn't work right because your vibration is too high. So you literally don't fit here. And you probably already know that because you don't fit in. You never have fit in. You've been a loner because of that. You've never felt right. It's like Neo. That was the whole purpose of the Neo character, was that he knew something was wrong and that there was something going on. And that was the awakening to being stuck. And that was what the whole movie was about. And all that entire series was. Not that we're prisoners, that aliens are in control, as some of the narratives some people try to tell you. That has happened, and it did happen, but we're not in an alien species that is in prison in the third dimension where we had somebody who was throwing souls at Earth as a prison. That's not true. Okay. So let's continue.
0.19 questioner. At what density level is RA? Ra. I am Ra. I am 6th density with a strong seeking towards 7th density. The harvest for us.
See, I was right. I had said before that Ra was in the 6th density, and people were correcting me and saying, no, Ra's 5th density. That's why I said it earlier. And I'm like, no, Ra's in the 6th, about to go to the 7th. And I'm like, I'm sure I heard Ra say that somewhere. And for years now, people are telling me, nope, you're wrong. Ra is in the 5th. Ra is just in the 5th. Right there, you guys just heard it. Ra's in the 6th with a strong perplexity. They're about to graduate to the 7th density. And the only reason they haven't gone to the 7th is because they're staying in the 6th, because they're helping us here, because they created this latest problem that we have. The reason I'm here, the reason Peter's here, and more than likely, most of you who are listening around the world, chances are the reason you're here too. Okay. It's a good possibility. 68 to 69% of the people that are here are only here on this planet because they're here to help, because they've come from a higher realm and they've descended back here and were born on this planet to be here and raise the vibration at this time. And I could get into why. That's all. I'll do that next week because I'm about ready to get off here tonight. So let's continue.
This will be in only approximately 2.5 million of your years, and it is our desire to be ready for harvest as it approaches in our space/time continuum.
So he's saying in 2.5 million of our years, they're going to graduate once you leave the third dimension, space-time continuum, everything happens now. So it's literally in a wink of an eye. But because we're moving so fast, it'll be 2 million of our years. If we stay here for 2 million years, it'll take that amount of time because this is the only place, the third dimension, just so you know, everywhere in all the universes, the third dimension is the only place that past, present, and future are separated and that time exists. Everything else, when you leave here and you get into, there is no time. Time is only the distance that it takes to get the physical body from one place to another. The spirit, the soul can move and transverse anywhere in the universe instantaneously by thought. And some of you who astral project are aware of that because you can do that. You can go literally to the other side of the planet. It takes you less than a second to be there when you travel outside your body and spirit walk, depending on what you were taught as to what that process is called.
14.20 questioner. And you ready yourselves for harvest through the best service you can provide. Is this correct? Ra, this is correct. We offer the law of one, the solving of paradoxes, the balancing of love/light and light/love. 14.21
All right, we're going to stop there and we'll get to 14.21, session 14, question 21 next week. Okay, so I'm going to stop there so that I can get off there. So if you guys have any final questions, ask them now. Otherwise, I'm going to log off for the week and then you'll have to talk to me in the chat. And I don't think Pamela's in there. So Casey, I think you can add Pamela. If you can't, let me know. And we'll put Pamela in the Law of One chat on Messenger because I don't think she's in there yet. And we'll get her in that chat group. I'll do that after I eat or in between while I'm cooking. Right. We'll put her in that chat. Pamela, of course, that is if you want to be in that chat because the conversations that we have in here continue in there. And that has an organic conversational path that continues 24 hours a day in there. There's not like a million people in there. there's, I don't know, 30 or some of us that are in there in that chat, but you're welcome to be there because we continue. And anybody who's on listening, if you guys want to get there, just contact me on Messenger and we'll add you to that so you guys can partake in conversations. So yes. Okay. So she said, I'm not, and I would absolutely like to be in the chat. So we'll get you in there, Pam, today. Sorry, I said Pam. It's a familiar one. You didn't give me permission. Pamela, we'll get you in there today. So even if you end up in bed and by the time you wake up, you'll have somebody will get you in and add you. Yeah, see, I don't think Casey that I have you listed as a moderator. I'll have to look at who's admins in that group. I know that Peter and I am, and sometimes we lock that out. Just like I think that was it you in the other group? I had to make you an admin in there because Peter put me and him, and I don't even think Peter Kyle is an admin in that group either. I think it's just Peter GV and I are pretty much admins in all the groups, and we'd have to think about who we add. We did that once, and we added somebody who added other people, and they tried to take the group from us, returning to the old ways. Tried to take the group, and Peter got mad and left the group and tried to kick people out. And I went through and got rid of everybody and added the people back that we wanted in the group and banned everybody else. He was like, I can't believe that they're doing this. And I was like, oh, that happens. I had people on Ancient Aliens Worldwide 3 times since 2012 in the 13, was it 11 years, 12 years? No. 2012 to 2022, 10, right? 11 years. In the 11 years I've had that group, I've had 3 groups of admins try and take that group away from them, take over because they wanted it, because they were in service to self. And I booted them all out, fired them all, and got in all new people 3 times now. That happens. That's where power, ultimate power corrupts. I talked about that just the other day. Right? Yeah. I'll have to do that. We'll have to make you an admin in both the groups. It's 11 years. Thank you. Peter's like, it's been 11 years, bro. All right, guys. So I know I blew most of you guys' minds. I always do. I try to give you more information than you can possibly have. And I channel this stuff. So sometimes I go back and listen to it and don't even realize I said the things that I said. And I go, I'm brilliant. I wish I could take credit for that, but I don't. I channel it. And a good person who is a guide will tell you that. I'm not the one. I'm the conduit. That's why Raw said in a stipulation, you can call the book the raw material, but you have to put a stipulation, and Raw put it on the stipulation as told by Raw, the humble messenger of the law of one. And that's why the books are titled that. And that's why I preface that, not because of that, but I also preface when I tell people I'm more of a guide, I'm not here. That's why I tell the story of Father Neil, who was a priest in the Roman Catholic religion, who also said the same thing. I'm not the person that is doing any of this. I'm not even needed. Once you are awake enough, it's not what he said, but it's what he meant. Once you're awake enough to realize you don't need me anymore, you won't. And a true teacher is the one who learns that and knows that. I am not the person who should be in charge because I have a knowledge you don't have. When I start thinking that, it's ego. Okay. When I start acting like that, it's ego. Because if I am a good guide, I know that it's the universe that I get my knowledge from. I don't own it because everyone can have it. Okay. But with common sense, it's only common when everyone has it. So when people say, well, he doesn't have any common sense, 90% of the planet doesn't have common sense, because if they did, it would be common, and it's only common, look up the word, when everyone has it. Okay. So knowledge and universal knowledge, that's why Nikola Tesla said if you want to achieve enlightenment, the only way that you can achieve enlightenment is through the natural being the key word here, the natural and organic, this is now not a direct quote, but through the natural enlightenment of the universe. And some people laugh at that, but it's true. Okay. And Nikola Tesla knew that. And when he said that quote, it was almost, it was 100 years ago now, more than 100 years ago, 120 years ago when Nikola Tesla first said that. Okay. So these people knew these things, and I know these things. So I don't try and say I am the gatekeeper. I have all the knowledge, and that you have to pay me for it, because you can have the same knowledge that I have. I know that. So therefore I am a humble messenger. That's what Socrates meant when he said, the more you know, the more you realize you know nothing, because that's on a base root, 3rd dimensional place. It means that. But on a higher level, spiritual level, you know that no matter how much information that you gain or glean or inner know, transmute, then you realize that we're in the third run from the bottom here. We can't possibly imagine enough to know enough. And the more you learn here, the more you realize that you need to be humble. And that's why he's making literally the comment here about, well, why haven't you left? And would you leave if you knew you had a cyst on the arm? Would you leave and forget about the arm, or would you heal it? So he's literally knowing that we are a part of the same whole, is what that analogy meant. And that he, in a sense, was the cause of the wound that is happening currently on our planet. Because of that, they, Ra, the whole species, will not graduate until they right the wrong that was taken and corrupted, which was the knowledge that they were bringing the people, that was corrupted about 12,000 years ago, 11,000. Like Peter said, it was 11. 11,000 years ago. What that knowledge was corrupted by nefariousness, by people in service to self, and they took control of the matrix, the dynamics of the planet, because they understood how it worked. And because of that, they locked down you, me, and everybody else on this planet for that time. And now people like myself, used to be few and far in between, one a generation, are now coming through by the billions with a B on this earth. That's why they can't kill me. They've tried to kill me 4 times in this lifetime, especially since 2016, since 2012. Since 2012, there have been 4 attempts on my life that we know of for sure were in fact the whatever you want to call it, the cabal, the nefariousness, the Orion crusaders, literally trying to murder me. Carla went through it in the 4 years that she was channeling Ra. They tried to murder her almost daily, but literal attempts to kill her at least 4 or 5 times. And then beyond that, because she continued to channel other entities, not just Ra, after the dynamic, the triad, the 3 people that were Leonard, who they don't talk about much, except for in the beginning, Dawn, her husband, the questioner, and Carla, who was the channeler. Those 3 made up the dynamic that allowed their energy to contact and communicate with Ra. Dawn killed himself, and I believe Leonard did too, but I know Dawn for certain shot himself in the head, and that severed the connection. She was never able to channel Ra again. However, she went on to channel many other entities, and that information is out there for you guys to look at and read and decipher. And I'm reading and deciphering a lot of these other informations that are out there. It's what I do. I'm a theologian. Okay. All right, guys. I love you guys. Have a good night. Namaste. May your God go with you. I will see you guys next week. And those of you who are in the class chat, if you have questions, feel free to ask them in the class chat, and we can talk about that further. And a lot of times I bring that conversations into the next week. And a lot of times if you have private conversations with me, you'll find that I do the same thing. And the conversations that I have with you privately, you'll end up finding out that I was doing that on purpose, because I knew that Ra was going to talk about that in the session that we're going to be talking about in the next week. That happens a lot. I do that stuff all the time. Have a great night. I love you guys. Pass this on. Have your friends listen to it. And those of you who turn this on, if you're still here, thank you. Those of you who pop in and go, what is this guy talking about? He's Penny might. I don't think Penny's in the class chat either, right? Let's get Penny into the class chat as well. Yeah, we have a class chat, Law of One class chat on Messenger that I created when I started doing this time, because I did it earlier in 2017, 18, 19. Although in this reality, it says I did it in 2019, 20, and 21, which is weird, right? So I was in a different reality when I did it. When I got to this reality, I woke up one day and went, wait a minute, that's weird. That says I stopped doing the Law of One in 2021, and we're just now in 2023, and that's not what I remember. So I did the 106 sessions already, and now I'm doing it again, but this time I'm going to a higher thing. So for those of you who are not in the Law of One class chat on Messenger, you want to be, please let myself know, let Casey know, or let Peter know, and they'll get to either me or the other Peter if we're the only ones who are admins in the group, and we'll get you into the group. And I'm going to have to make, like Casey and Peter, Kyle, an admin, so it's not just me or me and Peter GV. from South Africa. All right, guys, have a great night, but we'll sort it. Get it sorted today. I'll get you guys in that want to be in there. And I didn't think, Penny, you were in there, and I just thought maybe you didn't want to be. Right? Okay. So Denise said, if I'm not, can you please add me? See, so a lot of you may not actually be in there. I apologize for that. We'll have to get you guys in there. I'll work on that after dinner, or while I'm eating, I'll do it. Or if not, I'll do it afterwards. So just give me about an hour, and then all of a sudden you're going to get an invite. And then you'll start getting bing, bing, bing on your phone or your computer, because everybody will be talking. Okay. All right, guys. I love you guys. Have a great night. This has been Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show.